Good evening. This is Tuesday night, TNM, live from downtown San Francisco. This is round 3 of the Tuesday night marathon. Today we got special guest commentator, Grandmaster and 2018 U.S. champion Sam Shanklin, sitting in for our very own Paul Whitehead, who is on the beach in Maui, enjoying a nice little vacation. Hopefully he's watching and enjoying his time. So transition. Is this right? Very good. So Sam, thanks for coming down and hanging out at the Mechanics Chess Club.
It's my pleasure. This is the chess club where I was growing, and it's my pleasure to be back now as being a guest commentator for the Tuesday Night Marathon, a tournament that I sort of grew up on, and I'll do my best to shine some insight into these games, but you never know. I'm good at chess, but I'm not a great commentator, so we'll see how it goes. You have to bear with me a little bit.
I have no doubt that you're going to do just fine. Actually, the funny thing is, it's kind of funny sitting here with you because I remember when I had my own chess organization when I started it. I remember contacting you to do a simul. Mm-hmm. I think it was like 2013. And so, we go back a few years, so it's been nice kind of following your progress and, becoming champion and seeing a lot. And then, 6-7 years later, here we are at Mechanics Institute. So the journey, you never know where it takes you. So, kind of wanted to ask you because I know you did a lecture here about a month ago, and you have a new book coming out. If you want to tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my first book was Small Steps to Giant Improvement, which you can buy up from my website at samshanklin.com/store. Unfortunately, I don't yet have a pre-order link available for the next one, which would be Small Steps to Success. It's kind of clever, Small Steps 2, but to Success, so a little bit of a homonym play there. But I'm looking forward to it coming out. It's all about passed pawns, both in the middle game and in the end game. There's a lot more to passed pawns than originally meets the eye in most cases, and passed pawns are featured in almost every single decisive game that isn't decided by some direct attack or tactics. So the better you get, the more likely you're going to see passed pawns at some point. Talks about connected passed pawns, lone passed pawns, and protected passed pawns, the 3 different types in the middle game and the end game, as well as the concept of split passed pawns and inside versus outside passed pawns, things like this. And I'm very happy with the work, and I think I learned a lot while writing the book.
The other book, you kind of focused on, pawns and pawn structure. Now you have this book. Kind of what motivated that subject?
Well, I wrote this book just like I wrote the first book for very selfish reasons. I chose a subject that I wanted to learn about myself, and I think that I had a meteoric rise last year, and despite my rough run this year, I still have gained a huge amount of rating in the net. And I think a large part of my rise was from what I learned writing that first book, and so I just chose another topic that I wanted to work on. So the whole premise of my first book was pawns don't move backwards. And then this, which is a basic rule of chess that everyone knows, but really colors the way a game can be played. While the next book, the premise is pawns can become queens, which is also a basic rule of chess, but also can completely change how a game proceeds. So I'm quite happy with how that's been going.
You've been pretty fortunate because you've able to become a professional chess player, and for a lot of people that play chess, it's a grind, it's a tough business. Tell us a little bit about kind of just that journey, because I'm sure there was some point where you had to decide whether you were going to commit more to chess than to other things you could do in life.
I've always loved chess, and I think it's just human nature for humans to like what they're good at, and I was always very good at chess. I've been good at other things, but never really good. And chess I was really good at, and I kept on getting better and better, and when I finally realized I could make a decent living doing what I love, I decided to do it, even before I understood that I could make a really, really good living by getting to the level I'm at. When I decided to become a chess player, I had no idea that one day I would be a U.S. champion and 2,700 plus and whatnot. I didn't know the money would be that great, but I'm certainly glad that I made the choice I did. It's certainly a lot of work. It's a lot harder than I could ever imagine, but there's one thing that I wish someone had told me when I was 13 that no one ever did, which I shared with the kids at the last U.S. Chess School. The number one thing I wish someone had told me was that if you decide to become a professional chess player and pursue this or even not even just a pro, but also someone who pursues it to the extent that you do and cares this deeply about it, your life is going to be very, very difficult. But that does not mean you shouldn't do it. It will be worth it if you can overcome the adversity and ultimately end up where you want to be.
You know, one of the things that's been kind of a subject that like interests me, because I mean, throughout my life, I've had jobs where they're like 9 to 5. I worked in the basement of a hospital for 16 years,
Right.
and then making the decision that, you know, I really kind of want to pursue a passion that I have and something I do, and that's when I decided to start the chess business, and kind of led me to here. But you know, it's really difficult to have that attitude of going all in, literally going all in, and it's not a pure gamble. It's like a deliberate, hard work.
Yeah, I mean, being a chess player is much like any other job. If you work really hard at it, you're probably going to get pretty good and end up having a pretty good living, but sometimes it's harder to motivate yourself to work hard because it has to come completely from within. When I wake up in the morning, there's nobody like, I don't have a boss who's like telling me what to do or telling me to get to work if I'm being lazy. I just have to work, and I have to force myself to do it, and nobody is going to encourage me. And so if you actively choose yourself to do the kind of necessary work, you can make it. And I just remember the first conversation I ever had with Judith, not this Judith, the more famous one. And I think something came up where she was saying people were complaining that they were poor because they were chess players, and she said, well, how long do you spend studying chess per day? And they said, okay, like, I don't know, 3-4 hours. She says, okay, show me the rich person who works 4 hours a day. You're not poor because you're a chess player, you're poor because you're lazy. And that's obviously a very oversimplified way of looking at things, but I really took it to heart, and I think it's a very good thing to keep in mind. And you know, she's obviously a very wise woman with when it comes to chess, and that's sort of how I feel about it. I work very hard, and therefore I earn a good living, but you're going to really struggle if you're a chess player and you don't work hard.
You know, you a couple of weeks ago, you did the U.S. Chess School here at the Mechanics Institute, which was a lot of fun to watch, and we have a couple of the players. We actually, on board one, we have two of them playing each other here. You gave a comment one time when you had the whole group, and you started talking about life, and you had said something about the decisions that they make on the board and how it relates to life. And I thought that was pretty inspiring, actually.
It wasn't so much about the decisions they make on the board. What I was telling them was that their ultimate destinies, both as chess players and human beings, are going to be almost exclusively the results of the decisions they make. And you know, there are some things that you just can't control. You can't control how smart you were born, or how talented you were born, or whether you were born into a family with money or not, or whether you were born into an American family or not. I mean, of course, all those kids at this club were incredibly blessed to have been born in the United States and have grown up here, but there's levels of opportunities that will be available to you and won't be available to you. There's always going to be someone worse off. There's always going to be someone better off. That's just the nature of life. And but if there's one thing I've learned, which is that after largely being passed over in terms of external support for a while, that the decisions I made ultimately led me to be where I am today, and then ultimately got me the support that I craved. It came due to hard work, and I think that for all these kids, whether or not they become chess players, they need to know that where they get in life is really mostly just a function of the decisions they make, which goes beyond whether you choose to play chess or not, or how seriously you choose to train. But like it can come down to basic decisions like, oh, am I going to play let's say non-challenging opening because it's easier to learn, or am I going to really push myself to become a better player by learning a more challenging one that takes more effort to memorize the lines and understand properly? Am I going to play the open Sicilian or the closed Sicilian, things like that? But then there's other decisions you can make, like am I going to pay attention at school, or am I going to go and get hooked on drugs? I mean, those are more destructive decisions than the ones I'm describing as chess players. But ultimately, the decisions you make really, it doesn't matter. I mean, if you're born crazy rich or something, and you just go into the middle of the street and shoot somebody, you're going to go to jail for the rest of your life because of this decision you made. And if you're born without as much opportunity and you work really, really hard and you don't murder anyone, you're going to end up going a lot further. So I just wanted to make sure these kids knew that they should be focusing on their own decisions, the things that they can control. And I think that will really help them along. This is something that was told to me when I was young, and no matter how many times I was told, I didn't listen as much as I should have.
You know, it's just really nice to have you here, because I know when we kind of blasted on Facebook that you're going to be here and you're doing the stream, there's a lot of energy and a lot of excitement, and it's kind of, I'm sure it's great from your end to see kind of your hard work kind of pay off, and, you know, people get excited. Lastly, before we get to the games, what do you have on your tournament calendar coming up?
So my next event is the World Cup. I had a bit of a household disaster about week and a half ago, and as you can see here, but
not chess related.
Yeah, I tried to catch a falling glass Tupperware and severed a tendon in my left pinky, so I'm having surgery on Thursday, and but I should go fine. And then I've been mostly taking it easy as a result recently, but I'm looking forward to the World Cup. I've had a rough year, but the World Cup is the most important event of the year by far, and I'm just looking forward to that.
Well, I'll be watching and following, and thank you very much.
Yeah,
and I'll let you get started with the games, and then as the games go and as games end, we might have some of the players come in
Sure.
and do kind of a post-mortem.
Yeah, you can just
of
send it
everything,
whoever you want to.
and we'll send them into the hot seat. All right.
All right. Okay, so welcome everyone. I'd just like to point out that I do see your comments in the chat, and I'm encouraging people to participate, because if I just have to talk into the ether for long enough, I'm just going to start being extremely insulting for absolutely no reason, and nobody likes that level of hostility. But I will say I'm not going to respond to your comments by typing. Obviously, that's a non-starter with this hand, but I will try to interact with you by speaking. So on the top board here, we have Josiah Stearman and Eric Yuhan Lee, both of whom were in my class from the U.S. Chess School. And so far what we have looks like a G3 Nimzo gone wrong for black. So starting from the beginning, it was Nimzo Indian with G3, and now D5, as Eric has played, is a fine move. It's not the only good move, but it's fine. I don't know why this isn't letting me. Why doesn't this let me move? I'm trying to make a move here.
Oh, no.
Oh, on this board here. Okay. Yeah, so after G3, D5 is a fine move. Bishop G2, castles, knight F3, DC4, castle. And this is not the only way for black, but it's fine. And after Queen A4, the best move is knight D5. And then if I recall, I think white brings the queen back to C2. And then it goes bishop E7 or something. It's a little complicated, but I believe black is fine. The line is tricky though, and black does need to know this move knight D5 and a little bit more then afterwards to equalize. Instead, Eric has played the move A6, which I don't know per se, but I do know is not the right move. However, it's a very direct move. It clearly is intending B5 in some capacity. I don't know if black can do it yet. If it were black to play here, maybe he could play b5, and after knight b5, play something like bishop d7, or a b5 and try to trap this queen. But in any case, I think if you know that knight d5 is the best move, as I suspect Josiah did, he will start to think, why is knight d5 better than a6, and what does knight d5 accomplished that a6 does not, and I believe he landed on the correct solution, which is that white can play knight e5 in response now, which was not a luxury he has after knight d5 thanks to the hanging knight on c3. At this point, black's position is coming under concrete fire, and black has to be careful. For example, if he continues along with his plan with b5, after knight takes c6, white will win a piece in the game thanks to the pressure along the long diagonal. Eric chose to take on e5, which is probably a responsible decision, because if he took on c3 first, then white would play the intermediate move knight takes c6, and after bc6, b takes c3, white would immediately take his pawn back, probably pick up a second pawn, and be completely winning with his bishop pair. But after knight takes e5, as is played, d e5, bishop c3 is now forced, or else black will lose a piece. bc3, I think black is significantly worse here, because his position is sort of falling apart. Now Eric played b5, trying to hang on to the c4 pawn at all costs. He certainly could have tried knight d5, which is maybe a sort of like a damage control kind of move. He's admitting he's just worse after something like queen takes c4, but maybe he could play bishop d7 then and hope for bishop b5 or bishop c6 when I think black is worse, but it's probably not that bad. b5 is a bit more ambitious, just trying to keep everything, but it also makes a lot more weaknesses. So, for instance, following b5 as was played, and now I think queen f5 is a good move. I don't know if these clocks are accurate, but it looks like Josiah He spent quite some time on knight e5, I guess. Yeah, he spent 12 minutes on knight e5 and has played pretty quickly since then. So now black must play knight d5 because the knight and the rook are both hanging, and after rook d1, I think this is very, very bad for black already, because e4 is a very simple threat, but it's actually really hard to deal with. Because if black were to move the queen, so it's very hard for black to find a square for his queen, because queen d7 still walks into e4. If queen e8, bishop a3 will trap the rook on f8, and if queen e7, bishop a3 will be a skewer. So moving the queen seems very difficult. Black could try bishop d7, which might not be so stupid, but I think he's going to be clearly worse if white simply plays bishop takes d5 and rook takes d5, because black is ill-equipped to make any threats on the long diagonal, and his queen is still very awkwardly placed. For instance, after something like bishop d7, bishop d5, e d5, rook d5, black probably has to play queen c8, and then after something like, say, bishop e3, bishop c6 and rook c5, the pressure on the c7 pawn is very real, and white is ready to play bishop d4, f3, e4, and blunt that bishop on the long diagonal, and I think that his 5-on-3 on the king side will be much more valuable than black's 4-on-2 on the queen side. So that may be what black has to do. The other move black could consider is a little bit radical, which is f5, trying to stop e4 more forcefully and maintain the knight on d5. This may be what black has to do, pointing out that after e takes f6, queen takes f6, white is not in time to win the house on d5 because of queen f2 in the air. But this also strikes me as extremely flimsy and very risky. Something could go very wrong, but it's not that easy for me to see exactly what white will play after f5, so I think that's what black should try, because everything else looks really cheerless. Maybe he could consider giving a piece with something like c5, queen d8, rook d8, e4, bishop b7, but I don't think the pawns will be sufficient. I think white is blockading them firmly enough and should just be probably winning in that endgame.
One of the viewers suggested c6, but then he changed his mind, so...
Yeah, well, the problem with c6 is after queen d8, rook d8, e4, like, you're gonna end up with all your pawns on the light squares, and then white will blockade them on the dark squares. So that's why I wanted to play c5 instead, but I don't think it will work. I think black really should be playing f5 here, and after that, my guess is white should be better, but it's not that easy, at least. White could play a4, he could play e takes f6. There's at least some fight left in the game after f5, which I think really has to be played.
So the two moves are f5
or bishop d7, I guess, but I think that f5 is the move. I just don't really see...
Is queen e7 really that bad?
Oh, queen e7, bishop a3, and then...
c5?
Yes, and this looks pretty horrible. For example, after e4, okay, so he played bishop d7, but if he had played queen e7 just a moment ago, if we have this, oops, sorry. If he had played queen e7 here after bishop a3, c5, white could play e4, for example, forcing knight c7, and then rook d6 when the c5 pawn is going to fall, and then things are going to get really ugly really fast. So I think that's why not. With bishop d7 I don't like. I think he had to play f5, good or bad. I don't really think he had much choice on that one. White would have enormous compensation, but I think that's what he had to do. After bishop d7, the problem black is facing is after something like bishop d5, e d5, rook d5, the queen just doesn't have anywhere good to go. If you play c6, the endgame's going to be completely miserable after queen d8 and rook d6. And if queen e7 or something, there's bishop a3. If queen e8, there's queen c7. So queen c8 feels like the move, and then bishop e3, bishop c6, rook c5. As I mentioned, you'll have to play something ugly like queen b7, and then after, say, bishop d4, planning f3 and e4 to blunt black's bishop, and close the d-file, white will slowly but surely start expanding on the king side, and it feels like that should eventually lead to mate because he has so much more pawns there, while black's queen side majority doesn't look very good. So I think white is significantly better after bishop takes d5. Josiah has decided to play bishop a3 first, which I think is probably not best because of c5. But I could be wrong. So after c5, white will have to take on d8, and then after rook f takes d8, he probably has to take on d5 because of the hanging pawn on c3. And after something like c5, queen d8, rook f d8, bishop d5, e d5, if rook d5 there is bishop g4, and black is fine. So white should probably play bishop takes c5 when he is better, but at least black has got the queens off in an opposite bishop position. I think white probably should have taken on d5 first, just because. Also, another thing you could point out is after rook e8 here, if bishop d5, e d5, rook d5, c6, queen d8, rook a d8, the white's rook becomes a little bit awkward, and the bishop on a3 is misplaced. I would rather have gone to g5. So I just like bishop a3. I think white is still better, but I believe this was not the best move. With that being said, I think we can move on to.
I want to point out
other
that
games. Yes.
Josiah showed up at least 20 minutes late.
Okay, that's
So-
unprofessional behavior.
No, I mean, no. I don't mean that. I mean,
Well,
there
you
could
might
be.
not mean it like that, but I do.
Yeah, but traffic, whatever, San Francisco for you. But the fact that Eric is down on time, that means that Eric is
Josiah
thinking.
was better prepared.
Yes.
Okay, so next up we have Karam Seti Jivan against Ethan Goldie. Unfortunately, I don't know who either of these players are.
So
But
Jivan just moved here from University of Virginia.
oh, so he's a college student.
College, just freshly out of college, and he's around 2200.
Okay,
And Ethan is, I think, around 2000 or so.
and is he a kid?
Yeah, he is
Yeah.
definitely a kid.
Okay, so here we have an interesting one because White. But-
That's the kid.
Okay, he's
So-
not paying attention to his own game.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was an advanced French, and White has played bishop d3, which I always thought was a bit dubious. I never believed he had enough compensation for this pawn.
I thought it was dc5 instead of castles was the idea. After bishop d3, queen b6, dc5 I thought was the idea.
But black should play queen b6 before bishop d7 just to maintain maximum flexibility, I think. Yes, I believe here dc5 would have been a better move, and then white should be better. Instead, white really wanted to give this pawn, and now I think black really should be taking it.
You done?
I don't know why you wouldn't. I think you. I never thought white had enough compensation after knight takes d4 here. And what surprises me is that after rook c8, I don't know if we have a timestamp on this move from white. He spent a long time, some 21 minutes, and then chose at this moment to protect the pawn and thereby lose a tempo, which I find surprising. I think that if you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound, and now you probably should.
Knight c3 or something.
Yeah, I was also thinking perhaps knight bd2 to meet.
Oh, like the Taraj gambit.
Yeah, something like that.
So someone is asking about Jivan as a player. Your thoughts?
Well, this is the first game of his
Yeah.
I've ever seen, so it's very
and
hard.
it's a move 8. Let
for
me
me
actually show.
Which game do you want to see?
No.
Okay.
His name. Change his name. Okay.
Okay.
So let's. Are you,
Oh, Ezra. I didn't. I thought it was you. Okay.
Ezra is here. So let
Okay.
me.
That's up there, Ezra Chambers.
Yeah, I know, but I need to switch off Abel first, and then Ezra. Where were you, Ezra?
I'm gonna switch me up.
Yeah, I'm gonna switch you out.
Take a bit lower.
What happens?
There we
Ezra,
go.
there you go. Ezra,
Things change.
there you go. And then transition.
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. And then I'll get you the DGT board back to you. Okay.
What happened to your hand?
Hmm?
Slashed it with a. I dropped a glass Tupperware and it
Okay, so this is
severed
your
a
game
tendon in my
again.
left finger.
Okay, so we are still on board number. Move number 8. So.
Yeah,
We
so
left
here I think bishop e2 has to be wrong. You have to play something else, maybe like knight c3 or knight bd2 or something. Bishop e2 just feels very wrong. But then,
Daniel asking if it's too passive, rather passive.
yeah, it's not great. But at the same time, you may argue that the bishop on d3 has served its purpose because the biggest problem for white in the advanced French is the b1 knight, and by encouraging c takes d4, now he has cleared the c3 score. So if white can develop with, let's say, knight c3, a3, and b4 in the next few moves, I think white will just be better. But black is not without counter chances here. I would imagine that, like, for example, one line you could imagine would be knight e7, knight c3, knight f5. Looks like the d4 pawn is sort of coming under siege, but then we see that after knight a4, white will just be better with his extra space, and d4 has been secured, which is kind of thanks to having the c3 square available for the knight. So I've never liked this bishop d7 move early. It looks like it could have been punished with an early d takes c5. It wasn't, and now black could have taken on d4, and then now that he hasn't, bishop e2 feels very strange to me, but at the same time I don't see any great way to punish it. Black played f6, which I think is completely the wrong plan. f6 is sometimes seen in the advanced French, but only when the pawns remain on c5 and c3. For instance, if we were to go back here, black could play a move like f6 now, and then hope to play f takes e5, and then play c4 and bishop c5 to gain the square for the bishop. And that c4 break is, it all sort of revolves around c4 if white or black gets to play it first. Given that this exchange has already happened, I dislike f6 very much. I think that it is opening the king side long before black is ready to complete development and asking for a lot of trouble. Following knight c3 as was played. Ideally white would like to take with the knight on e5, but it looks like it's not possible because of queen takes d4. After d e5, a6, bishop e3, this is looking extremely dangerous for black. Queen c7, rook c1, queen b8, and if I were white, I would be very tempted to be looking at knight takes d5 here, because black it's smashing open the center while black is badly underdeveloped. It's not strictly necessary, and I believe the move white played in the game is sufficient for a nice advantage as well. Another thing white could consider is something like knight g5 here, hoping to maybe play f4, but that's also has its risks. Knight a4 is a very safe move, and it's probably a fine one. I'm sure white's just better here, but it doesn't really feed my bloodthirsty lust as well as some others might. In any case, let's move on to board 3. So this is, well, so something strange has happened here already in Tenzing Shah against Carlos Davila. So it seems
again,
black is open.
Carlos showed up quite late.
e4, a6. So Josiah has been outdone in the unprofessional department, both in terms of timeliness and opening choice. e4, a6 is. One guy played a6 against me once, but
Wasn't successful?
no, he was like the top seed in the California State Championship, and that's how I won the state championship when I was 16. Like I was a half point ahead. The guy played a6. I beat him in 20 moves and won the tournament.
Do you remember the name?
Andre Florian. So d4, b5, and now I don't think that a4 is necessary at all. I think white should just be completing his development with bishop d3, knight f3, and whatnot. In any case, now knight d2 happened, which is unconscionable to me. Why would you ever block your bishop like that without a very good reason? White should play bishop d3, and he is much better. And now, even still, despite my distaste for the way white has played this position, I believe he is very pleasantly better here. And after bishop e7, white can certainly just castle with a decent position, but it looks like he wanted the whole cake immediately with knight fg5, which I think is a very understandable attitude given his opponent has clearly taken a lot of risk very early in the game.
Let's say hi to Michael Agner, F1 Michael Agner.
Oh, late pawn?
Yeah, F1.
That's L8 pawn.
Well, I think that's Michael's handle.
Okay, well if that's Michael,
he can correct me if not. But
okay.
I have a
so
hunch, right?
White wanted the whole cake. No, White certainly could have just castled here and then played for c4 with pleasant advantage, but he wanted it all. I'm not sure I love this because he's sort of forced to make it work. So here I don't think you have enough firepower after knight takes f7.
King just goes to g8.
Yeah, and I don't think you have enough there. So g6 and now queen h3 and knight c6 has been played, and here there is some counterplay against d4. White could consider just dropping the knight back to f3 and pointing out that black has severely weakened his king side, but black then could play d6, queen d7, and castle long, where I think he's getting more from the game than he deserved. Still, I kind of like knight f3, d6 castles, and then white is ready to play bishop g5 next and exploit the dark squares. I don't think you're really prepared to do much else. If c3, there is going to be some bc, and maybe even knight takes c3 there, which would get very messy after knight takes f7, but that's probably just good for white. I don't know. c3 is also possible, but I'm not sure I love it. I think knight f3 would be my move here, and I mean, yeah, we've lost some time with the knight, but at the same time we got our queen out to an annoying square, and we've compromised black's king side pretty severely. I think white's a bit better after knight f3, and that would be how I would proceed.
Bye. Bye. Ezra is done. And yes, that wasn't my I'm sorry.
Next up is Winslow against Krishna Kumar.
Yeah, Sriram is a young kid as well.
I think he was in my US chess school last year.
Yeah. Let me change the name if you're okay.
Yeah,
or do you want to...
My name or your name?
Well, Ezra's name. Let's change Ezra's name. Do you want to get to a point where you can start talking about it?
So, okay, so this game started as Semi-Slav, where I think this move order from white is pretty good against a Semi-Slav, but the drawback is it allows bishop f5 and bishop g4. These are options that Krishna Kumar has not elected to follow, and after e6, b3, I think this position's pretty pleasant for white, but white has somewhat misplayed it later, because I think knight e5 is too rushed. Or maybe knight e5 is fine, but f4 is too rushed. White really needed to go knight d2 here first to prevent any kind of business with knight e4. And in addition, f4 is it's a part of white's plan, but it's the more important part is knight d2. And f4 will not be part of white's plan if black quickly gets c5 through. White will have other things on his mind. So, for instance, after knight d2, if black were to play something innocuous like rook c8, I believe then f4 would be very strong.
Oh, that's the Facebook. Yeah.
After knight d2, I believe if black plays c5, then I think white should change the nature of the game immediately with something like c takes d5, followed up with knight dc4, and looking for direct tactics with his lead in development. Because after f4 first, now after c5, white is ill-prepared to play c takes d5, because then after knight takes d5, the e3 pawn is hanging. So while f4 is part of white's plan, I believe he wanted to play knight d2 first. And here we see that it's already too late, because black went c d4 and knight e4 before white could do anything. And here, white's actually in a fair amount of strategic danger of just becoming worse. If you make some random innocuous move, black can go knight takes d2, queen takes d2, and then knight f6. When he is ready to play knight e4, making use of this weakened e4 square that white has created by playing f4, while black has not conversely played f5, black will then be ready to play f6 later, and he'll have a very nice outposted knight while simultaneously booting white's knight away. So I think white's position has a fair amount of strategic risk already. And
we have some old colleagues checking in.
Okay, so what do you want?
Hey, Jern, nice to hear from you. Got some a coach of ours checking out the broadcast.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do you like better, white or black here?
Well, my instinct would be black. I mean, my guess is the position should be equal one way or another, but I think that white has misplayed this. Whether he has misplayed this enough to be worse, I'm not sure, but I definitely, I'd be very comfortable on the black side here. So Winslow decided to take on e4, which is probably not a bad decision, but I mean, you're giving up your light squared bishop. It's
Forgot to push the transition. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, if you give up your light squared bishop in this structure, which is sort of geared towards launching everything at the king side, obviously you've lost a huge amount of attacking power. And after queen e2, white wants a more positional game. And then black played f5, and now rook ac1 comes. And now black has some decisions to make, but I think he probably should be taking on e5 with the knight, which will lead to a double-edged game, but probably a pretty good one. If white plays d5 after bishop c5 check, black will just be better. So white would have to play fe5. But after knight takes e5, f takes e5, and something like bishop b4 or bishop e7, I think that black's pawn mass is more dangerous than white's, and I believe black would be better. Rook c8 I think is rather pointless. The c4 pawn is just so well defended that I don't really think there's much to do on the c file. And now I think
Daniel
white
is
should...
saying you give black the bishop pair as well.
Yes.
He's saying it's
Here
dangerous.
my instinct with white would be to play rook fd1 and then go knight f1 to e3. Basically I want to make sure that knight takes e5 is as infeasible as possible for black, and by playing rook fd1 and knight f1, knight e3, then after some kind of knight takes e5, white will be very quickly ready to play f takes e5 and d5. In general, I think d5 is the break white should be trying to accomplish here, and bringing your knight to e3 is the best way to do that, so rook fd1 would certainly be my choice. Wenzel has played rook c3, which I don't understand. Maybe he thinks he can give checkmate without his light squared bishop, but I think that's very foolish.
What would you have done?
As I said, I believe white should play rook fd1 and then play knight f1, knight e3 to try to potentially smash through d5 and also play prophylaxis against black taking on e5. I think that would have been the most prudent course of action. After rook c3 feels very, very wrong. And black should have multiple options, but I think that I like knight takes e5, and I think that black should be better after. If d5, bishop c5 check is probably just winning because of, actually d5, bishop b4 will win the game with queen d3 coming. So white will have to play f takes e5, and then he's really ill prepared to ever play d5. And after something like bishop e7, he has to burn a tempo on defending d4, probably like bringing his rook all the way back to c1 is the best. And then black should be ready with bishop g5, and these kingside pawns are going to become a major problem. It's still double-edged, but I really like black's position after knight takes e5 here. So next up is Baradaran against Rudyak. So Rudyak actually took a game off me when I was a kid. I like this guy, even if he does play Scandinavian. So let's go back and see how this went. So this was Chigorin, it looks like, which I never had a particularly high opinion of. And it looks to me like black now is facing the deficiency of a knight on c6 without deriving the benefit of active play. I think white is just better. Don't know what he has.
So he took lessons from Rostchavia Tchaikovsky. Also, regarding I think the previous game, what's the plan after knight takes e5, f takes e5 for black?
Yeah, we can go back to that for a second, actually.
The mysterious other pawn.
Yes, after knight takes e5, f takes e5, I think black's plan. First, he'll play bishop e7. That will immediately ask white a question how he wants to defend the d4 pawn, which is not an easy question to answer. And then I think black's plan should be to attack the king side, something like queen e8 to g6 to overprotect the e4 pawn and force through f4 would be my instinct. But next, let's go to this game. So basically here I think black is just worse because he has the deficiency of the knight on c6. It just looks like a bad queen's gambit accepted to me. And then white decided to try to exert maximum punishment, it looks like, with this move queen a4. Which allows black to compromise his pawn structure. White certainly could play more positionally and have probably pretty pleasant advantage, but after queen a4, he clearly wants the whole cake. But I don't love this decision, actually, because of precisely what black played. First this, and now a6, which stops any hope of bishop b5 to cause massive problems, and forces white to retreat. Now, I still think white is better, but I think white could have simply castled here and played like h3, bishop e2, and just had a nice position. So, as it happens here, white's probably still a little better, and I quite like f4. And after bishop f3, I believe black has blundered with the move knight d5, because unless I am missing something, he will lose a very important pawn here. After knight d5, e d5, queen b3, I don't see how he will save the d5 pawn. If knight b4, there will follow a3. And if the d5 pawn goes, black is in massive trouble. So he played bishop b4 check, king f1, but white's king is totally safe here. Black has no way to generate any kind of attacking power. He will lose the d5 pawn, and realistically probably the game to follow. If that d5 pawn goes, black's position is just miserable, and I don't really see any compensation or any hope. I think black is completely lost here.
So Armand is a 2200 rated player, and Felix is around 19 or something.
Right. So it's Sodikova against Ostrovsky. This looks like
Russian
Rosalimo.
school, right?
This looks like a Rosalimo gone wrong. So this game starts as a Rosalimo Sicilian, which Magnus is playing a bit in the World Championship from the black side. And I don't know if, I think in this position, I forget the exact move order, but I believe Magnus played knight f6 here, and then went knight d7 and e5 later, but I'm not sure. In any case, queen b6 looks very strange to me, and after knight c3, queen back to c7, I don't really understand why it's worth a tempo to force white's knight to c3 when you could have gone to c7 in one move. I think that this this knight was supposed to go there anyway, so I'm not sure what this was. And a tempo in a position like this is going to be very important, because strategically black has a very healthy game. If he could just get like e5 in and complete his development, but that's a big if, and white can make problems in the meantime. So for instance, after bishop e3 b6, if I were white here, I would very seriously consider smashing d4 right away. But white went queen d2, which is fine. e5, and now a4 I don't love. I would much prefer to play a3 and just smash b4 next move, basically no matter what. If black plays a5, I'll castle and then play b4 next move and sacrifice a pawn and try to make use of the lead in development. I think that this is that just playing a3 b4 will be much better for white. Instead, a4 is played, which I don't think is nearly as strong as now. After a5, black is able to lock the queen side. And here black played h6, which demonstrates, I think, a fundamental misunderstanding of the position. I don't think black should ever fear the trade of dark squared bishops here, and he should absolutely prioritize completing his development by means of knight f6 and castles, and probably then later knight d7 and rook e8. For instance, if knight f6 here, bishop h6 and castle, I think black is maybe a bit worse because he's played a little strangely and dropped the tempo, but it's not so bad, and he's got a decent enough game. Instead, h6, this feels so slow. This queen b6, queen c7, h6 has left black badly behind in development, and after knight h2, which is not a particularly subtle move, white wants f4, and I don't think there's anything black can do about it. g5 is way too weakening. And now f4 comes, and this position already looks extremely dangerous for black. So black had to take this, and now after queen d7, knight e2, this looks very dangerous for black. He will not find a safe castle anywhere on the board. I think he should probably castle queenside here and hope for the best, but it looks very dangerous. After g5 is played, bishop e5 and f6. This, I think black absolutely needs to castle queenside here. His king side is far too vulnerable. But after castle's short and knight g3, black is in huge trouble.
We are giving a big shout out to Joanne Arbil. She used to be the director of Mechanics Institute.
Wow, okay.
So she's saying, I'm so proud of the chess club and the wonderful people who are running it now. And it still remains my favorite place in the world. Thank you, Joanne. Oh. Awesome. And Bruce Richard is here too. We miss you, Bruce. And Daniel saying that apparently Natalia's husband is an IM.
Okay.
So I didn't know that.
So yeah, here f5 has been played, and I believe white should be winning by force already, one way or another. So takes, and now white is thinking of it. My guess is both queen c3 check and knight takes g5 should end the game right now. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's anything remotely resembling a defense against either of these moves.
Nice.
Probably the simplest one is queen c3 check.
And f pawn is here. I am
there's
F pawn.
okay.
There's like
The real F pawn.
the real F pawn.
The real F pawn is back.
We switched up.
Okay.
We drew up.
Yeah.
And,
So we had an
Sandman.
F pawn impersonator, or maybe someone who couldn't read. But
That's me. I couldn't read.
okay.
Sorry about that.
yeah. But here, this game looks absolutely finished. For example, if knight h5 check, the king has to go to somewhere really ugly like g8, and after queen c3, it just looks like lights out. Maybe you can play knight h5 check, king h7, queen c3, knight g8, but this looks so horrible. And my guess is knight takes g5 is crushing too. I think black should be lost about 6 different ways here. But some combination of queen c3 and knight h5 or knight takes g5 directly should be absolutely devastating. For instance, I think knight g5 should be played. I think there's no reason to avoid it. After knight g5, hg, queen takes g5 check. If knight g6, there is e takes f5. And if king f7 trying to run away, we'll go e takes f5. Once the bishop moves, then we'll play queen h5 check, preventing the king from leaving the kill zone, and then lift a rook with checkmate. I think knight takes g5 is the end of the world, as black knows it. He will not last to move 30. So queen c3 has been played, which I also think should win it, but it's probably not quite as brutal as after king h7, knight h5, and knight g8. I don't see a direct win just yet, but the position still looks horrible for black. I think white missed the most direct way with knight takes g5.
Daniel would sag the knight. He's saying.
Okay, well, Daniel is a wise man. So here we have Derek Gia against Alexander
If
Ivanov.
Natalia finishes early, she's a very fun co-host.
Okay.
She
well, see if we
she
can
did
follow that.
a few times with Paul. She's very fun.
So this game here was started out as a tirage French with c3, which is not a very challenging move, as black quickly gets a good version of an isolated queen pawn because white's moving his knight all around and black is developing quickly. So I think black quickly equalized in this game. Normally in an isolated queen pawn position you'll have to fight to get b6 in. Also the bishop will be better placed on c4 than d3 so that d5 becomes a threat in some cases, and here black quickly has very harmonious development. And already I think black should be slightly better at this point. I don't believe white's attack will succeed here. The major problem is you need to lift a rook somehow. Like this rook on c1 needs to get to h3, and I just don't see a good way to make that happen. And here white even decided to voluntarily exchange on f6, and this just is not going to work. I mean, if I were white, I would probably play something like a3, knight d5, queen d3, and then potentially swing the queen to h3 and just try to like make threats against f7. Still, after a3, knight d5, queen d3, and g6, for instance, I'm not very scared of bishop h6. I think that black has a very comfortable position, but this feels like the way to go. After bishop takes f6, bishop f6 you really should only do if you basically see a forced win, because now black's bishop is just monstrously strong, and after queen h5, queen g4 and bishop g7, I think black is considerably better already. I wonder if he could have done anything even more brutal. For instance, here, if he plays h5, I don't even know where white's queen wants to go, because if queen f4 there is bishop g5. Maybe white can do that and play queen g3 and say that if bishop c1, knight g6 will crush, but I don't even know if that will work. Bishop g7 is fine, it's a more tame move, but sometimes boring is prudent, and nobody cares about interesting or boring when they win. Let's just try to win the game. So rook cg1 is a very sad move, and after knight d5 I think black is much better. His bishops are just so strong. White has no attacking prospects against this light square pawn chain on the king side, complemented by the unopposed dark squared bishop on g7. Black's so active, no weaknesses, the d4 pawn's bad. I think black is much better here. So
we have a user asking about the details of the tournament, so let's take a pause and then tell all the viewers. So this is a Tuesday night marathon, so we have 9 rounds together.
which round is this?
This is round number 3.
Okay.
So we had already 2 rounds, so and it's a classical game in 2 hours with 5-second delay. We have 3 different sections. We have the 2000 plus championship section. We have the under 2000, that's between 1600 and 2000. And then we have the under 1600 section, and all 3 sections are FIDE rated. So
Oh, it's
Come on
fantastic.
out.
It's grown a lot since I've been playing that,
Yeah.
but
yeah, and we have
It's just-
47 boards tonight
just take
playing
a quick look at the last few games before we go back to the
under
first
16.
ones.
Yeah.
So this one here, Michael Lynn against Guy Argo. Black played the Dutch, which already is a horrible opening because we have Michael in the chat, but it's particularly horrible against knight f3 in the first move because it allows exactly what white just did, which is d3 and e4. So f5 actually does make some sense against d4 to fight for the e4 square, but if white hasn't yet committed to d4 and can fight for the e4 square without it,
Finally, Michael picked it up right.
then after e4, here I think all the strategic deficits of f5, falling behind in development, opening your king, are on display, while the asset of it, of fighting for the e4 square, is not relevant, and I just think white is better here. As we see in the preceding moves, white immediately took this opportunity to smash open the center before black was ready to deal with it, and very quickly black ended up in a horrible position. I got a buzz on my phone. I'm wondering if that's Michael trolling me.
So Michael Lin is a 2161 rated player, and a guy is 1859.
Yeah,
So
so-
there's a significant difference.
So here already, for instance, like black is just feeling the pain of weakening the f5 score.
Yeah.
Like this position here, it's also not just the f5 score, but the lack of development. Because if you could imagine black playing like queen d7 and d5 and stopping knight f5, I think he would be completely fine. But because he has spent his time playing f5 early in the game, he has fallen behind, and knight f5 is causing massive problems. So rook e8 takes, and now after knight d5, black's king side will become severely compromised. And at this point, black just has a rough ride ahead of him because he is strategically worse, thanks not only to his potentially weak king, but also to the possibility of playing f3 when black will have to either like accept hanging pawns or an isolated pawn, or potentially even further weaken his king side by playing f5. So this is
Michael's saying that Michael Lin knows a thing or two about facing the Dutch, or thing or
Okay.
3 actually.
thing f3. Well, I don't even know if this is actually technically I'm not good with nomenclature, but I don't actually know if it's technically a Dutch if white hasn't opened with d4. It might be named something else. I thought the Dutch was explicitly d4 f5, which, let's be real, is also bad, but not this bad. So, no, it's, okay, so,
It's tempting me with ice cream. That's not good.
yeah, that's not good. I have to wash the ice cream.
Well, it's Ghirardelli. It's like around the corner.
I normally eat like a fatty, which is fine because I work out a lot. But now that I'm out of workout mode for a while, I gotta eat a little bit more responsibly.
You guys are just fine.
Okay. I don't know. My doctor told me I'm fat. But, I don't.
What was that? The same one who was quoting whatever? How many $1,000?
No. Okay, so
That's crazy.
let's move on.
So apparently Michael taught Michael.
So then there's another game here from a lower section, which looks like it was a Scotch Gambit.
So this is the middle section actually.
Yeah.
So the 1600 to 2000, and Mohammed Mansour actually won last TNM.
And do you let him back in the same section once he's won it, or do you force him to promote?
No, we let him.
We should consider that though.
Yeah.
I think forced promotion is a good thing.
I don't know if the USCF lets us get away with that though.
You're a private chess club. You can do whatever you want. I mean, if this Mohammed Mansour has won the section, he should be graduating and playing with people who are challenge him more.
You go to the Premier
maybe.
League.
Okay.
Let me look up his current rating. Okay?
Okay. So, I mean, this
Currently he's 1885. He was paired with 1885 in
Okay.
the first round.
So this is a Scotch game it's a Scotch Gambit, and I've always thought these positions were pretty good for black. I'm not sure on all the move orders, but because white ending up a tempo down, I just never really believed in it. And f3 right away, I forget if this was supposed to be right or if they played bishop e3 first. I'm sure people who were older than me will know this better because this was a pretty popular line for a while, but then at some point it just turned out black was fine, and I think people figured that out before I started playing chess, so this was never really a thing. F4, and here knight e4 was played, but I would be very tempted by knight e6 as well. I don't know, maybe this is just theory and I don't know a darn thing, but knight e6 and something like bishop e3, bishop takes d4, bishop d4, and c5 with d4 to follow looks very tempting for me. Anyhow, this is probably just fine. F6, knight d2, and now bishop g4. Wow, that's a funky move. Obviously the point is if queen takes g4 there is knight takes d2 and white's bishop is overloaded, but I don't love this exchange. Black is giving up his bishop pair and developing white's queen for him, so I wouldn't be surprised if white is better if he plays queen g4.
Yeah, let me actually switch the camera a little bit,
Okay.
because then we can actually see Mohammed playing.
Okay.
So transition. So Mohammed
is
well, he's up right now. He's wearing the white T-shirt.
But he would be sitting there, okay.
Yeah, he would be sitting here facing the guy in the red orangish sweater, and he's walking. Mansour is walking right there. There's a good 200 rating point difference, and actually Mansour was a 1780 player before. Starting last TNM, and then now he's around 1880, so jumped up a good 200 points from last TNM, but I don't think we should force him to play in the championship. As an organizer, I would keep him here.
Right. Wow. Okay, so let's move on then to the final game. Jerry Simpkins against John Chan.
Oh my god, this is a classic game. I mean, the players actually.
Yeah, I mean, John Chan I think was my biggest ever upset. I think he beat me when he was 1500 and I was like 2050 or something, so it was like a 550 or 600 point upset. It was a rapid game, so I don't know if that counts at full freight, but it is...
So for the viewers who don't know the two players, these are two old hardcore mechanics players, Jerry and John. They come in often. They always register on site and never use online registrations. And
yeah, well, it looks like this game is very far along already. I don't know how they've made 50 moves when no one else has made nearly that many, but
so leading board in the under 1600.
It also looks like they're about to make a draw by perpetual check. I mean, black is dead lost next move if he doesn't give checks, and I don't see how white escapes them, so I believe that this game should end in a draw very promptly.
And that's perfectly fine.
Unless white can somehow escape the checks. But the problem is if he plays rook f3 trying to escape the checks, black doesn't even need to give perpetual check anymore. He just needs to win the e6 pawn. For instance, after rook f3, queen c1, king f2, queen d2, king g3, white may escape the checks, but after like queen e1, black will take on e6, and then black is fine. So I think that this game should end immediately with a perpetual check. But
I think they're signing the score sheets.
Could white play king d2 here? Maybe. Actually, yeah, king d2 probably wins the game. If king d2, then black will have to play queen g2 and then king c3, and I don't see any more checks. Because if d4, queen takes d4, white is consolidating.
He's discussing whether if it's a perpetual check.
I don't think this is a perpetual. King d2 looks like a winning move to me.
Jerry Simpkins is a notoriously aggressive player.
So it looks like he's made a draw here by perpetual check, but I think that I think white is winning after king d2.
No, they didn't sign the score sheet, so they're still playing then.
Okay, well maybe. Okay, no, but now the problem is he can't. If he plays king e2, then queen g4 will be a third time repetition. So there's, at this point, white has to make the draw. He's lost his opportunity to avoid it, but with an hour on the clock, I would think you should be spending more time than here, because if you're making a draw, you just end the game right now, but after king d2, I think white is winning. So unless I'm missing something, maybe black can play d4 and try to spin the wheel, but I don't really believe it. After d4, you can play like e7 or something, and I think white's doing pretty well. Anyhow, let's go back to the open section, see if there have been any developments. So now Eric Lee looks completely lost. I'm just curious how this happened. So after bishop a3, Eric played c6, a move I hadn't considered, but does not look so special. I was advocating for c5 here when we last checked, when I thought black was worse but still kicking. After c6, bishop b4 from Josiah is clever, I guess, but I'm not sure how brilliant. If black were to play knight takes b4, he's probably okay. It's gonna... I think he should not be worse, at least with the pawn up. It's gonna be... maybe he is still worse after something like knight b4, queen b4. White will simply slam rook d6,
Did
rook
Natalia
d1.
just finish the game? Let's quick. No, it doesn't seem so. I thought that. Sorry.
Well, okay, but let me... so yeah, after rook c8, queen d8, and bishop a5, I think black now is probably just busted. It looks like maybe Eric has missed bishop a5, but the problem is here he's basically in Zugzwang. I just...
Did she finish? Okay.
like after king f8, rook a d1, it doesn't really matter where you put the king. I think you will not make another move for the rest of the game, basically. Like, let's say king, I don't know, e7, bishop, and then bishop b6, and I just have no idea what black ever wants to play. He's probably reduced to just sitting and waiting, and then white will slowly but surely start kingside expansion. I think that black's just dead lost.
So Natalia apparently did finish the game. I don't know.
So let's see what happened. I was advocating for knight g5. So black played king h7, which I thought was the best move, and after knight h5, I wanted to play knight g8, but it looks like there was something weird with the score, because after knight g6, knight f6, knight e7 was played, which I find that to be an unlikely turn of events. So it looks like what happened was black actually played...
Do you guys want to go over her game?
Yeah,
Natalia,
sure.
Sam,
Hi.
Natalia?
Okay, so we're joined by our first victor of the night,
Yep.
which, as you can see by the name, is Judith Cesarte. And,
I'm so not... Okay, where's
it's
your
okay.
name? Do you see your name?
You should be good with Russian names, right? So
Yeah.
Shtotakoi, up
Yeah.
there.
Where's your
Higher,
name?
higher. There.
Oh, there you go. Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so
Transition.
we
Wait,
briefly...
you need the DGT boards, okay?
Okay.
What was the last move she's asking, so that he can set the board?
Okay.
Hi, Daniel says hi. Daniel Perlo.
yeah, this one is the rock. No, the king on g6.
Okay. King on G6. No. See, there's a missing a few. Or
Yeah, there were
so.
some weird moves here, but we'll get Natalia
Well,
to
yeah.
explain
Let's go
to us
back to
what
the
happened.
beginning. Right?
Yeah.
Anyway, until then, I'm sitting in Natalia's seat.
Okay.
Have you heard that Ilya is coming this Monday?
Who?
Ilya Nizhnik.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize.
So
it was
he's coming to visit mechanics. He's gonna come do a short quick simul, 10 boards, 15 boards during lunch break. So around noon to 2.
So this is Monday, you said?
This is
Oh,
this
so I guess
Monday.
if anyone's around the area and wants to play a decent grandmaster, you'll have a chance to do so.
Exactly, and not even, not only the simul, which is the lesson deal, but he's actually coming back and giving a lecture 5:30, and then he's gonna play the Monday Night Rapid,
Oh,
which is FIDE rated. We have 2 sections, 1800 plus and under 1800. It's a game in 15 plus 2, second increment. So come on out and play Ilya.
Yeah. What's the prize fund for the tournament?
50% of what we are getting.
Okay.
But
not
I can
enough.
throw a little bit in if you want to play.
Nah, I think I'll be on very strong painkillers at that point. If I
Oh,
have
yeah,
surgery
yeah,
on
yeah.
Thursday,
Yes.
so
Oh my god, yeah.
I should
Never
probably
mind.
just be at home moping around and
Yeah,
being
but we are
miserable,
going
but,
to broadcast it, so you can watch Ilya play.
Okay, I can watch and type mean comments in the commentary behind an anonymous username, because that's a really, let's be real, that's a very very fun thing to do. There's a reason people do it.
Yeah. So critical thinking, delay or something. Row delay. Are you here already?
Yeah.
Good.
I don't know.
Okay. So you
Alright,
guys can
so,
go over your play because there are some.
Okay, so your game was Rosalima Sicilian, and then I'm not the biggest expert on this line because I've always
You're not?
no, I've always felt you need a certain fortitude to play d4 on the third move. That's always how I believed Sicilian was.
But there's a lot of theory there, right? So
Yeah.
that's why I'm trying to.
Right. No, that's theory has never scared me, but I'm just explaining why I don't know these positions so well. But maybe you can educate me. So
Do you play Sicilian by black?
yes, but usually not with knight c6.
Okay, but
I
do you
usu-
know some lines of
Yeah, I mean,
of course.
I've studied a
What
bit.
happened with your hand?
I dropped a glass Tupperware and it broke and severed a tendon in my left pinky, so I have surgery on Thursday. But
Oh my goodness.
this will not be pretty. It will be a long road to recovery and extremely expensive. But what can you
Oh.
do? Even with insurance. But that's
It
how
was
it
a
goes.
freak accident.
Yeah, it was just a container drop that hit the counter and then broke and this.
The glass, like,
Yeah,
oh wow.
and then nasty, gave me a really nasty cut. So I guess the first moment I was going to ask about was this move Queen B6, which I didn't really understand. Is this a theoretical
I mean,
trend?
it's
or-
not it's like my opponent played Queen B6. No, Queen B6 is not the theoretical line. So basically, the idea H3 White is trying to prevent Bishop G4 and exchange the
Right, the light squared bishop.
light square bishop because knight is kind of needed to control the D4 and E5 squares.
Yes.
So it's kind of
I mean, H3, I understand the point.
yeah,
of
but I mean,
course.
of course, Queen B6 is not a theory because my plan is like to make to move
Right,
knight on C3. So
it seemed to
it's
me
kind of a
that-
waste of tempo.
It seemed to me that Queen B6, Knight C3, and Queen C7 seemed like Black was attempting to force you to play Knight C3.
But it's like I wanted to play knight C3.
I
So
didn't
like
understand why the knight would be better on A3 or D2, so I thought this felt very strange the way he played. And after Bishop E3, B6, Queen D2, E5. So this was my first question: is why did you play A4? Because for me, I thought the most natural plan was A3 followed by B4.
I mean, yeah, maybe you're right, but I mean, I kind of saw the other games, and like when I know that A4 is played, it's kind of this position. It's hard for me to move to other plan like during the game. I said
Right.
I know like
Well,
A4 is a useful move,
I mean,
but then
my understanding of these positions was Black is fine if they can complete development, and
right then I mean later.
I thought White should be trying to smash open the position, particularly because Black has wasted time with the Queen. And after A4, A5, the Queen side is locked, while after A3, I couldn't figure out how Black wanted to stop B4. For instance, after A3, A5 castles, I thought White will play B4 against basically anything Black does, and I thought the Queen side would just fall apart.
So you send A3, A5, and then castle.
And then castle, and then sacrifice the pawn with B4 next, and blow up the position while Black is underdeveloped. I thought this looked extremely strong, but
Yeah, it didn't cross my mind during the game. This
Right.
plan, yeah.
because
maybe.
I just thought after A4 and A5 that Black's position was a little bit safer than it otherwise could have been. And here, I think that H6 was extremely stupid because of.
But I thought maybe he's planning to castle alongside, so that's then.
Yeah, that would be normal, I thought. But if you want to castle long, I would say go Bishop D7 and castle long. But I guess I don't understand why Black feels such a burning need to play H6. For instance, after Knight F6, and
Then I probably would play
H6?
bishop. Yeah, he
Right,
he didn't want to allow bishop.
right, but
bishop
I'm just not
H6.
sure why that is. I mean, why we're so married to this bishop on G7, it doesn't do very much. After something like Knight F6, Bishop H6 in castle, the position looks pretty normal to me. Black will continue with Rook E8, Knight D7, Knight F8, Knight E6, and my guess is he is slightly worse because he has burned some time with the Queen, but I thought that this was the prudent course of action because after H6 it felt like he's just losing too much
Probably
time.
like what you're suggesting, like just simply play knight f6 or what?
No, I think Knight F6 is the best move.
Then probably I would have continued with bishop h6
Right,
and
Bishop
then,
H6
and then
then
castle and then exchange on g7 and then probably
Knight H2 and
yeah the same kind
yes,
of thing.
I believe Black
yeah.
is slightly worse there because he has a tempo down, but it doesn't look that terrible, I think. I mean,
yeah, I
Right.
mean, it's not white is not winning like
Of course,
immediately, but
I
yeah.
just think that h6 from black made your life a lot easier than it could have been.
I kind of also like he was
Yeah,
like
because here I think if white can blast open the position with f4, that white should be close to winning because black is so underdeveloped. And here, I guess, just the last critical question.
Bruce is asking, why do you need your left hand if you're left-handed or if you're doing anything with both hands? F4 at some point
like
for
my
white.
left hand.
Critical thinking delay. F4 at some point for white. He's asking.
delay on f4.
No, that's
F4.
just his username. He is suggesting that f4 is the right plan, which I think is correct.
I don't know who's critical.
But here, I thought that g5 was not great, but I think clearly the last mistake is castle short. What were you planning if black had castled long? I thought this was by far the way black had to play out. My guess
Yeah,
is...
you need to think about maybe probably I'm not ready to take on f5, but
I don't think that's the right plan. There's not
I
enough
was like
pieces over there. I mean, I think black is noticeably worse if you play simple moves like rook f2 and rook f1 and try to smash against this backwards f6 pawn that's struggling to move.
how about d4? Do you think it's like a good idea?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
After d4, first of all, I don't think you're threatening anything. After d4, black could potentially...
I want to take on c5.
Right, but after d4, if black... Like, after castle long d4, black can play f5, opening up this sleeping bishop, and then dc5 will lead to some complications, which I don't think white wants. For example, after queen d2, bishop d2, black could play fe4, and then I think... No, there black just wins, but after castle long, d4 just feels like wrong to me because black... It lets black play f5 and pick up the bishop. But after,
maybe knight g3.
Yeah, knight g3 I think makes some sense, specifically because h5 is well met by knight takes g5.
Right, maybe not d4 right away, but maybe later on. But I don't want
I'm
to.
not sure. I think your best plan after castle is to put as much pressure on the
f6.
Yeah. Knight g3, rook f2, rook f1. It looks extremely good for white.
Right.
I thought black should have castled queenside in this position when I thought this was the last moment where I thought black could have put up a fight. My guess is he's worse, but I don't know if he's that much worse if he castles long here. I couldn't find anything fantastic for white right away, but after castle long, perhaps black's next move will be f5 to try to open the bishops to some degree, and I thought that maybe he is fighting back a bit, but
right.
the way he played, I think at this point the game's just sort of over. And then, f6 and then f5 leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, now the king is just stripped of defenders. I was curious if you considered taking on g5 here.
I was. Wow.
I thought it was kind of lights out, but it's easy to sacrifice other people's pieces, of course.
Right, but I thought like queen c3 is like also winning, right? So if you take on g5. Then
HG and queen 6 g5 check,
and then he has like knight g6.
The knight g6 he takes f5 wins the house, if he plays king f7, you will play e takes f5, and then queen h5 check next to keep the king stuck on the king side, and then rook f4 will come, and that should be checkmate. The only line I was struggling with at all while calculating was knight g5 hg, queen g5 check, king h8 with the point to meet rook f4 with rook f7. But I don't believe this will hold either. For instance, after rook f4, rook f7, even a move like rook e1, it becomes extremely difficult to meet a very basic threat of e takes f5 just because everything is hanging on the e file and the bishop has nowhere to go. I thought this was sort of over, but again, it's very easy to sacrifice.
But I didn't even want because he has like a check on d4 at some point. Maybe he's like gonna defend g7.
It's possible. I thought it should be winning, and here's some weird business. Oh, he played king g6 here?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I was curious where the win was if king h7 and then knight h5, knight g8. I didn't see a forced win. I thought white was like much better, obviously, but I didn't actually see checkmate.
Yeah, there's no checkmate. Probably I would have gone like knight e5.
Right,
and exchange the queens and then take on c6 and then take on d4.
Yeah,
because
that
there's
should be
no-
good enough. But after
But
knight
yeah, there's
e5
no like.
after king h7, knight h5, knight g8, knight e5, if black plays queen c7, it's should be lost somehow, but I just couldn't quite figure it out perfectly.
Say it again. which
So
one?
king h7, knight h5,
Yeah.
knight g8, knight e5, and queen c7. And if knight takes c6, then there is f4, and trying to sort of shut down the king side to the extent that black can.
Yeah, knight takes on c6, whatever.
Yeah, knight c6 and then f4. And then I'm sort of closing the position, and I'm pawn down, but at least I have something to play for. I mean, I don't know. Of course, black should try this because it's better than resigning next move, but this was probably a pretty good way to try to offer some resistance, because as it happened, it looks like he just went down without any fight at all.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, maybe knight g5 maybe is like more forced way
Sure.
to continue, and maybe it's
So
like,
we've got our computer people saying knight takes g5 was +4, but knight h5 was even stronger. So apparently the best move was knight h5 here, but
yeah, I was saying, but I thought there's no.
ultimately you can read your computer evaluations all you want, but 1 to 0 is 1 to 0, and it doesn't really matter.
But what is
move.
like after knight h5? What's the difference if he would go like knight king h7?
Oh, I think the point is the computer wants to go knight takes g5 next
With
without
the-
allowing the king to go to h8 instead, is probably what it has in mind. Yeah, so knight h5, king h7, knight takes g5 is probably the end.
And
of the board.
h
And queen takes g5.
and queen d4.
Yeah, it's
Check.
actually offering some resistance. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, knight takes g5 feels like it's just so automatic. You don't close the h file and you keep e takes f5 in the reserve, but I
Yeah.
don't know. At this point, we're splitting hairs. If we put this into the computer, my guess is it will say the top 6 choices are all winning, would be my guess. I'm guessing ef5, knight g5, knight h5, queen c3, rook ae1. I'm pretty sure all of these moves will win. My guess is h4 is also winning. My guess is
Any
like,
possible move.
yeah, you're gonna have to work pretty hard to find a move that doesn't
Maybe
win.
king
for white.
h1 also winning.
Sure, like it's.
Just to, you
So
know.
I wouldn't. Yeah.
But it's been a while for me because usually I'm, playing the last one. I mean, it's like my games usually last
Yeah.
until the control. So like for a change, maybe I get like Sam as a partner, and I can
Yeah,
play.
yeah.
If we had a prize for the longest game,
Yeah.
she would be.
But not
rich.
today. I knew I would have a grandmaster next to me.
Okay.
Finished them off quick.
Right.
All right. And knight g5 is not in the list. What? I'm confused.
Not on the computer.
Really? But he just said knight takes g5 is +4 just a second ago.
We don't have a computer here, no.
Even if we do, I don't want to use it.
You
That's
don't
not
want-
how you
yeah.
learn.
Yes.
I don't commentate by. I'm not an interpreter. It's not my job to interpret what the machine says. It's my job to give you my own extremely stupid insights. If you want smart ones, just turn on your machines.
No.
But,
That's like
We prefer the deeply flawed analysis.
Yeah. So yeah, 20. Yeah. So he said my knight g5 move after that knight h5, king h7, knight takes g5 was the bad move there, and white should do something better. But yeah. Anyhow, I think it was a very nice game, and it's good to.
Yeah, not a lot of resistance. So maybe you don't play this kind of opponents on your level, right? So
No,
people, yeah. So it's like when you
Every now and then, I never win like this. Sometimes I lose like this, but I never win like this.
Yeah.
Every now. It's pretty rare to just beat. I mean, the only game like I remember this year just crushing someone without a fight was this game with Nepomniachtchi, but it was also because he took a huge amount of risk very early in the game, and just in a way that was bizarre, and he played.
So why is like the preparation?
Yeah, well, I had
or-
this horrible gaffe where I resigned a drawn position
I
against
remember
Erie.
I was watching like
Right.
yeah, and I
So
saw
I
that
did that the previous day, and so my guess is
against the Anish Giri, right?
And
yeah.
so my guess is Nepomniachtchi saw that and either thought this guy's a moron or this guy's going to be so upset he won't be able to
Yeah,
see straight. I have to like beat him. I have to take risks. But so he took a lot of risk very early in the game, and it didn't pay off. He just got crushed. But
But it was a nice comeback for you, right?
Yes, of
because
course.
you were
I mean,
like,
it's, psychological
you were
fortitude.
very upset about the previous game.
Of course, I was very upset, but psychological fortitude is part of being a top athlete, and that's
Right.
if you can't do that, you're not going to make it to the top. So,
But what happened in the previous game? Well, like, why? I mean, you just it's like
no, I thought I
mental
was lost.
blackout.
It was a misunderstanding of the position, and it was a reminder that in general, if you don't know something, what you don't know usually doesn't hurt you very much. What hurts you is what you think you know, but you're actually wrong.
Oh,
So
yeah.
what I knew was that this position was a draw with my king on a8, and my king wasn't getting to a8, but in fact it turns out it's also a draw with my king on c8. So I'm actually just making a draw there, and I didn't realize it, and I resigned a drawn position and looked like rather the doofus, but the next day I was able to fight back. So
Yeah, that's.
anyhow, thank you very much for your
Yeah,
analysis.
thank you. Yeah,
and,
I hope you're gonna feel better
thank
soon.
you.
And
Okay,
chess is
so-
like one of the sports
do we-
that you can continue playing, right?
So, yeah.
Wait. I'm gonna give back the interface.
Okay.
Okay. So Josiah finished his game.
Okay, so we'll bring in
Yeah.
Mr. Stearman.
Thank you, Natasha.
Yeah.
Okay, so
It's okay.
all right, so we're joined by top seed in the tournament or no?
Second seed.
Second seed. Okay, we're joined by the second seed, Josiah Stearman. So we spoke about your game a bit in the beginning. A6 is not the best
Yeah,
move, is it?
knight
Knight
D-
D5 is
yeah.
what I was telling them.
But I don't think 95, it's not, I don't know, it didn't seem to get much.
I thought that Knight E5 was the best move. I don't know what you disliked about it.
Well, I know, but like, I thought it was pretty drawish, the position that it got.
At which moment?
Um,
So around here, I thought you were just better. At least that's what I told the audience. I thought Queen F5 was clever. When did you think you were losing control or anything?
well, I don't know, I thought after 95,
Rook d1. This I thought. Here I was thinking that Black absolutely had to play F5.
yeah, I was thinking about F5, but I thought Bishop D7 was fine.
Really, I thought that this position was very bad if you took on d5 here.
Yeah, I mean, I should have taken D5.
Yeah, I thought Bishop a3 first was inaccurate. So why did you choose Bishop a3 first?
Well, I wanted to play Bishop A3 first, get the rook on E8 so I can bring my rook to D1 after everything takes, because I thought after takes D5 takes D5, rook takes D5, Queen C8.
Yeah, my instinct there was you actually wanted your bishop on e3 instead. I thought this was the best square to bring your bishop to d4 and blunt the d file completely closed, and then start playing f3, e4, and expanding on the king side. This I thought was the best plan. I could be wrong, but for instance, after bishop a3, if he had played rook e8 here, my thought was that after something like bishop takes d5, e d5, rook d5, c6, queen d8, rook a d8, that the bishop was misplaced and should have been back on c1 so that it could go to g5.
Yeah, I guess.
Was my feeling I got. But here I also was wondering if he could have played c5.
Oh.
I thought that after queen takes d8, rook f takes d8, that you probably had to play
Takes D5.
bishop d5, and then if after e d5, if rook d5, I believe bishop g4 is probably okay for black. So I thought you had to play bishop takes c5 when white is better, but I don't know how much. I thought this endgame was probably reasonably defensible for black, or it certainly looks a lot better than what he got.
Right.
Obviously, he's not fully equal, but I thought this was a pretty good thing for him to try. I still think he should have played rook e8 here as the best move, but
Yeah, I didn't see C5. So
So-
Bishop B4 here, I think.
so here he could again play c5 to
Yeah, I
transpose
guess
to the
C5.
variation I suggested.
Well, actually, no, after C5, I'd take Bishop A5.
You want to play what, sorry?
Like, after C5, Queen takes D8, you take back with either rook, Bishop A5.
Okay, but why is that so scary?
Because I'm going to play E4 after you move your rook.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting. Yeah, that might be very strong. So maybe black missed his option to play in this manner. Yeah, after rook c8, it seemed like his position was absolutely lost very quickly.
I mean, here, just give up the exchange. Knight C7 is...
Yeah, like you wanted like king f8 or something?
Yeah, something like King F8.
Yeah, I mean, this had to be tried because after knight c7 and rook d6, black is in stalemate, but it's just never going to make a move for the rest of the game.
Well, actually, it's just completely decisive after this.
Rook takes c6, very nice. Could he, and if king e8 still rook takes c6?
Or rook takes d7.
And then after it takes on knight d5, he's alive.
No, it takes e4.
Okay, even that. Yeah, I just thought here, like, I mean, I told the viewers after bishop b6, black will never make another move for the rest of the game, which is certainly true, but it looks like rook c6 was even stronger. So, yeah, it seems very one-sided game, but, you know, you can't help that. Nice one. Yeah, and I guess here, yeah, if black felt the need to play rook d8 because bishop b4 was coming or rook a7 was coming, yeah, okay, this is bad news. So, yeah, I guess this was a good win. Was there anything we didn't cover in it?
No,
it just looked like an opening gone wrong for black, led him to a worse position, and a couple of bad decisions left him unable to offer much resistance.
Apparently rook e8 here, black's better.
Minus
0.9.
That's a lot, actually, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah, so...
I guess after takes, queen c8 is the idea. And then the white...
Yeah, that's like the kind of position where I believe your rook bishop belongs on e3.
Yeah.
To go f3, rook c5, king f2, bishop d4, everything's super solid. His queen side's going nowhere, and you will start expanding. So, yeah, I thought rook e8 was the best move here. I didn't realize that black was that much better, and frankly, I don't fully believe it either. But it certainly doesn't look that bad for white to me by any stretch. But I think that you definitely should have taken d5 first, because I believe the bishop would have been better on e3 here. Okay, so apparently...
Wait, why am I going with d4?
Apparently the computer doesn't want to take on d5. Actually, if bishop takes d5 here, is there bishop c6? Nah, bishop takes c6 should win, right?
Yeah.
Bishop e8 maybe though? No, then bishop a8 should win. Yeah, so bishop a3, rook e8. Okay,
d4.
So rook e8 apparently was the move, and now for whatever reason Stockfish does not want to take on d5. That's baffling to me. Bishop takes d5 looks obviously like the best move. And again, I think that white has misplayed it to some degree, but I also don't think you should be worse or anything.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
So, I don't know. Stockfish might just be trolling you. It wouldn't be the first time. But, I really can't figure out why Stockfish likes flex position so much.
I mean, I only assume the light squares. That's the only thing.
Oh, it's some nonsense from Chess 24. Okay, forget everything this guy has to say. Stupid Chess 24 being Chess 24. They have... I don't know. I've long since learned not to trust engine evaluations online. They constantly change their minds. But yes, because after c6, bishop b4 I think was the last important move of the game. It looks like here black's position is very difficult. Maybe he could have tried taking on b4, but
yeah, I thought that was the best move for black.
But it looks absolutely horrible. You will play queen c5 and rook d6. You'll take your pawn back whenever you want it. I can't think of an active move for black whose bishop is just so bad.
Yeah.
So this is a good game. I guess it's nice to pick up a pretty fast victory over one of the stronger, tougher opponents you've had in the tournament so far, right?
Yeah.
So, this was good stuff, and we're glad that you joined us and explained to people what you saw in this nice rook takes c6 move at the end, which was kind of cool. So,
Thanks.
thanks for coming. All right, so that was Josiah Stearman, unprofessional, showing up late, but still winning his game. Okay, so let's go back to this G1 against Boldy. So when we last left this game, knight a4 had been played, which was the safest route to a big advantage and probably the most prudent course of action, but also not as bloodthirsty as I would have liked, but probably the best move. And here, black ended up badly underdeveloped, and this is exactly why I didn't think he should have played f6, because if you take one look at this position, you immediately understand that his pieces are completely unprepared for a direct assault. Already I'm looking at moves like bishop h5 check and asking black to move his king, because otherwise bishop d4 will come, which I think would have been very strong. Instead, this was played, and here white I think is completely winning after queen c1, forcing queen takes c1, rook takes c1, bishop d7, rook c7, and then the whole house falls after something like bishop c6, bishop takes a6. I think that white will win very routinely. Queen d4 is played is almost certainly good enough. Knight e7, and now black will at least get his knight to c6, but I cannot believe for half a second that this will hold together. For example, if rook c1, black can go knight c6, but then there is bishop h5 check, you cannot play g6, and after something like king d8, bishop g5 check, bishop e7, and queen takes g7, black is busted. I wouldn't be surprised if that's how the game ends. I think after knight c6 here, bishop h5 is the end of the world. So I believe that this Jivan Karamsati is going to win this game very routinely in the next few moves. The next up is Tenzing Shah against Carlos Davila, which has roughly followed as I would have expected. d6, and here I thought white should castle, as he did, and after queen d7, I was thinking probably bishop g5 here, but it might not be best. Instead white played bishop d2, and now black played g5, which is baffling to me. I think he must have just blundered this pawn. I can't think of another reason. So takes, and now bishop f8. I guess he wants to castle long, but this clearly is not working very well.
Oh, okay, hi Sam, how are you?
Hi Josiah.
Let me fix, like, can I fix? Actually, probably I put in name. What game were you?
We were on the Davila game just here.
Okay. And Natalia, I put on top of each other. Okay. A lot of games finished already, so.
Yeah, maybe I'll have an early night if I'm lucky.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
So this Carlos Davila is in massive trouble. It looks like he's just a pawn down here, and bishop f8 is an extremely sad move. He clearly wants to castle, but now black is a pawn down, has nothing major to show for it. Rook fd1 is fine after bishop e7, c4, knight b6, bishop e3 I imagine now. I think after bishop e3 this game is more or less finished. White's a clean pawn up, and black has no counterplay whatsoever, and
No, that's fine. He can't.
no space and bad structure, and I think that white is absolutely winning here.
What happened to Paul? Paul is the luckiest guy on earth. He has a girlfriend whose girlfriend's workplace awarded her with a free trip to Hawaii.
That's actually fake news. That's not true.
It's not. It is true.
Actually,
we are very jealous of Paul.
Actually, just letting you guys know, I am Paul Whitehead, just younger and more attractive. And just if you want to know the secret, is a diet and exercise.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's what happened with Paul. Sorry to interrupt. I apologize.
Yeah. So after bishop e3 here, I think that black is absolutely busted, and hopefully we'll have this be the last time he plays the St. George. Okay, so Winslow against Krishna Kumar. So at this point I made a case for knight takes e5 previously. Krishna Kumar has decided to play queen e7, which is certainly not a bad move, but I believe knight e5 was more to the point. And now g4 from white I think is way too optimistic.
Continue.
It's just looks really, really bad
There
to
you
me.
go. And there's Elliot's lovely back.
Okay. After g4, I think white's position looks extremely suspicious. Because now, after knight takes e5, as was played, f4 is going to come with a lot more force. That's one thing. Also, black could have just taken on g4 here and opened up white's king drastically. So I think this was a very bad decision. After knight e5, fe5, bishop b4, rook h3. My guess is black is completely winning here. Just have to find the most accurate way. It looks like in the game he played queen g5, which certainly looks good enough to me. I think white is 100% busted, and this game is just about finished. if that knight moves and f4 comes, there's not going to be any reason to continue playing, and I don't even know what else. Maybe you can play bishop c1, but after something simple like queen g6, I have no idea how you want to stop f4. I think that Krishna Kumar will win this game extremely fast. So,
He's not even sitting in his seat. Elliot is thinking.
yeah, White's probably realized just how wrong this has gone. I mean, this is... Yeah, there's not much to be said here. This game is not going to be saved. Black is just winning. So that's all I have to say about that one. Next up, so the Baradaran Arman against Felix Rudiak. When we last saw it here, I claimed White was basically winning thanks to his winning the pawn on d5, and it looks like the rest of the game has followed that script, as now, in addition to that, Black's bishop is in danger. And here, Black is not only a pawn down, but he has a buried bishop on b6 that will never get out. After bishop d2, a5, king e2, it's almost like Black is down a piece, because there's just no way for this bishop on b6 to ever rejoin the game. And Black is completely finished. So here, if Black were able to play c5, maybe he could pretend. But after rook a c1, rook d6, all White has to do is activate his own bishop and start making problems. Rook hg1 is fine. He could have also played like f5 or something. Now Black played f5, rook g5, rook e d8, with the extremely subtle intention of bishop takes d4. White did not blunder it, king e2, g6, and now h4 comes. As soon as White opens this game, he will be a piece up and it's just over. So rook e8, king f3, king f7, and now I imagine h5 is coming, and I think Rudiak will not be long for this world. Sodakova has already won. And then this Derek Gia against Alexander Ivanov that we had previously discussed here. I said Black was much better, which he is. Knight e2 was played, which is obviously a sad move. Queen d6, knight f3, White is in full-on retreating mode, and Black's pieces are all of Black's pieces are springing to life. This looks rather horrible. Rook fe1, and now it probably just takes a few accurate moves to win this game. My instinct with Black now would be to take this knight on d5 and try to put it on a square that attacks d4. So something like knight e7 to f5 looks extremely natural and more or less crushing to me. Knight b4 might also be a thought. Instead, knight f6 was played, which I don't love, because now the knight has a harder time attacking the d4 pawn, but still I think Black is much better. And after queen b4, it seems like stuff is falling. Knight g5, you're not fooling anybody. There's no checkmate with the bishop on g7. Queen takes b2, and knight takes f7. So White's going for it, which he has to do. But this is not going to work. Black is winning after king takes f7. For example, after king takes f7, knight f4, rook e8, there is no way that White's attack is going to work. For instance, if rook e6, then Black could even play rook c1. So Black will have to make a few accurate moves to dispel any hope of checkmates, but they should not be hard to come by, and I think he will win the game in very short order. So I believe rook e8 is the easiest win here. Like rook d6 is fine too. I mean, as long as you don't see a ghost or do something really stupid, I think Black will win this game without any particular trouble. Although you sort of wonder why he brought his queen all the way here just to take this lowly pawn. Like at this point after knight g5, I mean, the guy clearly wants to start sacrificing stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if like you make one defensive move and just stop any hope of an attack, and then play like bishop d5 here, and then take everything next move. I don't know, but I can't believe this will work. I mean, I think White had to try, but after rook e8, I don't think this attack will work. I think if rook e6, rook c1 just wins, and yeah, so this should be winning for Black pretty routinely. So Lynn Michael against Guy Argo. So when we last left this, Black ended up with a compromised kingside pawn structure, and White indeed played f3 as I had suspected. And now after d5 here, black is having a think. Looks like his position is very difficult because knight e5 is well met by f takes e4. And that would win a pawn for white, but otherwise this knight will be pushed somewhere extremely sad. If knight a5, the knight is trapped, and if he has to go something like knight d8 or knight b8, black will not hold this game. So I think black should probably play knight e5 and give the pawn, and just hope for the best to like hold a bad endgame after something like fe4, fe4, queen e4, queen e4, queen e4, rook e4, rook e8, and just hope that you have some drawing chances in the rook endgame, but I think it's a pretty meager hope, and that black is probably just lost.
He's down on time too.
Yeah, down quite a bit. So then our previous winner here with bishop g4, a move I didn't love, and now knight f5 I also don't love. I think white should play rook fd1. And after takes, is that a hanging rook on f1 or am I blind?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so black could take a rook on f1 here. I don't know why he didn't, but after fe5, white does not have time to recapture the pawn because he will lose his rook. And as all this has gone down, black has only ended up a pawn up instead of an exchange up, but that is enough to win the game with accurate play. I think that, especially because here rook af1 can be met with knight d2, it's very hard to suggest a move for white, and I think white is more or less lost, but maybe he can fight on with, I don't even know, I was about to say fe5 and knight f5, but I doubt it works.
Let's go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, why didn't he take it?
I don't know, but I think fe5 does work too. I don't know why he wouldn't take that, but yeah, I mean, this still should win. Rook f2 is not a happy move, and yeah, I mean, black
It's just forcing. Yeah.
Black is a very healthy pawn up with good coordination. Should be winning.
Yeah.
So let's go. Looks like white did win this game. He did play king d2. I think this was actually a threefold repetition.
Yeah.
We have
They didn't
1, 2, 3. So he could have claimed a draw, but he did find king d2, which I pointed out later was winning. As after queen f47
Greg
check,
Shahadi is
the
here.
game falls apart.
Hi, Greg.
Greg's here. Hi, Greg. How are you? We had a couple of U.S. chess school kids on board one, but the game ended pretty quickly. It was an interesting game. Yeah, Josiah played a good game.
Very good game. And Shriram is he a US chess kid?
I think that Shriram was not in my last session, but he was in the previous year, and it looks like he's playing extremely well and should be winning too.
Yeah. You guys trained them well?
Yeah, just hopefully not too well. I want to
You
keep my
don't want
job
them to come
eventually.
after you?
Yeah, but by the time they're
Thanks,
really
Greg.
getting good, I'll be old and decrepit, and I won't just have a messed up hand. I'll have a messed up everything, and I'll be like 41. Might as well be dead and buried anyway. But like, yeah. So let's move on. Let's go back to Krishna Kumar because I thought this game might end extremely quickly. Yeah, so it looks like Elliot Winslow still has not yet made a move, and I don't even know if he'll make another move at this point. This looks absolutely finished. Can you see more Bullet versus US Chess Kids? I can't play Bullet. I even lose to Greg in Bullet. That's how you know it's time to retire. But no,
But those were fun. Definitely fun videos.
yeah. That's good, but okay, have fun, Greg.
Thanks for
I'll just let you
tuning in.
know that all of the money you paid me for the U.S. Chess School and a bit more on top of that is going towards tendon repair surgery, which even with good insurance still costs a fortune. So thank you for that. It's still not enough, but yeah, this is. I think here that black is completely winning, and it looks like white is still thinking. I don't know why, but I wouldn't be surprised if he resigns here.
Can we go back to Javin's game? I haven't seen that when you started
Yes.
covering again.
Okay, so this one here. Well, I actually predicted the game would end in this position. Back here when I was calculating rook c1, I predicted this exact line until now, and I predicted black would resign here. which I think he should do. But
No, he played.
okay, but this is just checkmates. Queen h8, and you're taking another bishop at least. Yeah, Queen h8 is maybe bishop takes e7 is bishop takes e7 is nasty. Nah, bishop e7. Why do we need that? Just Queen h8. Yeah, so I did predict that the game would end at this moment. But I think that Queen takes h8 will come and Black will resign. Because if King c7, Bishop e7, and if King d7, there is Queen e8, King d6, and Rook c6, when everything will collapse. So I think that this game is finished. Shaw against Davila. Okay, so Davila is trying to put up some resistance, but realistically there's not much resistance to be had. He should be losing here without any particular discussion. I guess maybe knight a5 could be a thought, which would be a little annoying to deal with, but it shouldn't be so hard. Well, I could even play a move like knight d6 check here, which I think is kind of clever. Because if cd6, bishop b6 is strong, and if bishop d6, ed6, rook d6, white has c5. So I think that's a pretty good way to bring the game to its conclusion. Knight d6 looks pretty good to me. So, yeah, I think knight d6 will put black out of his misery. In this Badnaran Rudyat game, white is still completely winning, as he has been for the past several moves. He just has to activate his rooks, and then as soon as trades start happening, he will. The closer we get to a pure bishop endgame, the easier it's going to be for white to win, and he's doing all the right things. He's opened DH file, he's ready for rook h7 and rook g1 next, and black is not going to survive this one.
So folks, Mechanics Chess Club, we do enforce the cell phone rules, okay? So if you have a cell phone and it rings, we will give you penalty.
What is the penalty?
10 minutes.
What? That's not the penalty, it's a forfeit.
Well, we give them first the penalty and then forfeit them, okay?
Is that FIDE rules?
Well, that's modified FIDE rules, okay?
Modified FIDE, okay.
Yes, because
I like that, modified rules.
FIDE rules because, we pair by USCF rules anyway, so we don't pair by FIDE rules. And it's been long being accepted here to have cell phone on. It doesn't matter if you ring, you can check your phone, whatever. We are not doing that anymore. We are trying to work towards no cell phones. If it's possible, turn it off. We do encourage everyone to turn it off.
I don't know, I'm sitting here at the Mechanics, I see 6 lovely drawers that could fit 30 cell phones each. I think you're doing just fine.
So if
you
you
give
have
them a spot to check their phone, and then no problem whatsoever.
So if you have a problem, give it to us. But at least put it to
Krishna Kumar is staring right into the camera. He's like, what are you guys looking at?
I know.
He doesn't care about his position, he knows he's winning. Staring at the camera like,
and
what's
then
up?
Ethan is contemplating, right?
Yeah, I thought he was going to resign here, but I guess he
good
could
camera
play.
angle, thank you.
Okay, white found an even more brutal move, actually. He played rook takes c6, which is even more violent. I mean, queen h8 certainly was good enough, but rook c6 is, even more to the point. So I doubt we will see another move, and this kid needs to resign. It's past his bedtime, and if you have such a lost position, you don't want to torture yourself by looking at it any further. Just, shake your opponent's hand, congratulate them on a good game, and let that be it. So,
I actually always wondered what you guys, super GMs, think about what's the deciding point when to resign?
Well, for me, you resign when you're in a drawn position. That's when you do it. But in general, I think when you truly believe your odds of winning are 0%, or your odds of scoring any points are 0%, is the moment you resign. If you believe there's a 1% chance you draw the game, you keep playing. And
so what about blunders? Because
Well,
at
you
this
have to
level,
evaluate.
2,000 plus players belong to.
Yeah, well, you have to evaluate how easy the win is, as well as how certain. I mean, you can have a position that you know is lost, but still, like, you could imagine mistakes happening, and you always play those out. But if you if you're lost in a position that's just very basic, like for example, if you just get some rook endgame, rook and 5 against rook and 3, same side, no blunders can be had. There's no tricks to be had. You just give up. I mean, it's if there's no tricks to play for, there's no way you can. You have to be creative. Think of blunders your opponent could make. If there's none there, that's when you should probably resign.
Okay.
But yeah.
That's I think that's a very tricky thing to teach the kids nowadays.
Yeah.
When to play out, when to keep the hold because you don't.
It's like this kid here, he's wasting his time and energy. Now here it doesn't matter nearly as much because he doesn't have to play tomorrow. At least I don't think so. It's a once per week event. But if you have to play like later that day, or you have to play the next day, you want to resign and make sure you're well rested and you've had time to get over the disappointment. But here, I mean. And at some point, when you're strong enough, it just becomes disrespectful. I mean, this kid, I don't think anybody will care. But like, if I were in this position with black and I played bishop takes g5 against like a super GM,
that would be rude. Right?
Yeah, that'd be asking for trouble, and you know, I don't know. I think that's just So I don't know. There's one very talented player I played against once. When I won't name him, but I was 2200. And he was 2000, and we were playing in nationals at some point. And at some point, I just got down to king and rook against king, and he thought for like 10 minutes. I just thought, okay, the guy wants to, collect himself before he resigns. Then he actually played a move, and then I made a move, and he started thinking, and I just looked at him and said, resign right now, and he did, and then we left. It was pretty funny. That kid's now a grandmaster. He got really good, but he was very young, so I certainly don't hold it against him. But okay, so.
Well, anyway, we do get this a few times as an organizer, player.
Well, at this point, there's made in 3 moves with queen g7, queen f8, queen e8. You won't even have a chance to take the queen. Yeah. But, it's, I don't know. I don't know why you would keep playing this position. So, Shah against Davila. So Shah did play knight d6 check as I recommended, and black's hopelessly busted here, but he should try c takes d6 so that at least he gets some pressure with
he does play.
Sorry, what?
Can we go back, please?
Okay.
For me as an amateur player, it's actually
okay.
It's right. So he plays it.
Yeah.
Played. Okay. Anyway, yeah, we can go back.
So queen f8, queen e8 is made in 2.
Yeah.
But okay, let's see if the guy's gonna make that move immediately or not. Okay, at least he's moving quickly. You're not wasting your opponent's.
Yes,
if you're wasting your opponent's time by playing this out, that's rude. But if you're just moving like really, really fast, you're not hurting anybody.
And then probably knows it's.
Yeah.
Right.
No, if you want to play in a position that you should be resigning, at least do it quickly. And this kid is definitely doing that, so I wouldn't hold that against him. A lot of kids have just also been taught never to resign. Okay, so
yeah, that's true.
Okay, so so knight d6 check has been played in this Shah against Davila, and I think
Bruce agrees with that. Okay, I think it's over.
Yeah, so that game is finished, and now this is Shah against Davila. Knight d6 check is on the board. I think black should play cd6, and after bishop b6, rook d7, he's sort of can hope that his bishops are pointed generally towards white's king, but still after e takes d6 followed by bishop e4, I don't see much counterplay. I think the game is more or less over. Let's see, the Rudyard game is still this dead lost endgame for black. Winslow against Krishna Kumar. So Winslow did play bishop c1, and I thought that queen g6 was the end of the world here. Maybe after queen g6, white can play rook f4, but there should be no shortage of winning moves. F takes g4 is probably the simplest, just be like super straightforward, not very complicated. so I think that this game should be concluding. This game should conclude very quickly. So, like, is the kid still thinking, or no? Now he's looking over on another game. But yeah, so Queen G6 looks.
Can you get Javi? Javi.
Oh yeah, his game's over.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Queen G6 should be good enough. F takes G4, Queen takes G4 should both win without a ton of discussion. They're just a little bit boring, but there's nothing wrong with being boring if you're winning.
Nicholas Bulge. The extra game.
Okay. Nicholas.
With gold out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, yeah.
And how is he doing? Okay, so this game.
Ethan's brother just drew. So.
Okay, so here Bishop D5 is played in with D8. So yeah, Black is, without a ton of effort, beaten back the attack, and it looks like we have another guest here. So
Yes. So Sam, Javiv,
hi,
Sam.
Sam.
So
Pleasure to meet you.
say it again.
Jeevan.
Jeevan. Sorry about it. Let me put up his name, please.
Okay.
And then, so did he put your name in it last time?
He did, yeah.
Okay, so I should be able to find you soon then.
And get rid of yourself.
Oh, here, there you go. Okay, so and then
Dr. Jeevan, there you go.
not doctor.
How do you know? He could be a doctor.
He could be. Are you doctor?
I'm not.
Okay, let me switch the camera view to the room cam so that it's a little bit more meaningful, maybe. Okay, so and DGT board. Oops, there you go, and interact. There you go. It's yours.
Okay,
Thank you.
so you won a pretty direct game here that actually ended with checkmate on the board.
Yeah.
So this is your second game in the club, right?
This is, yeah.
Nice. How do you
Okay.
like San Francisco?
It's good. I moved here a week ago. So
Where did you move here from?
Virginia. Just
Okay.
You
graduated
just
from
graduated.
UGA.
Okay, and what are you doing out in the Bay Area?
I just started a job at McKinsey.
So what
McKinsey
do they do?
Consulting.
Okay, what kind of consulting?
Management consulting.
Okay,
Is that the building next door?
so we've got a
We have an office here in Redwood. I'm in the Redwood one, but yeah.
so we've got so we've got a managing consulting guy here. I don't know exactly what that is. I'm told that when drug dealers don't know what to say what they do for a living, they say things kind of like that. But this guy
Thank you for that.
seemed like a drug dealer.
Sam's opponents here.
Okay, so we've got both players here from this game. So
I don't think I can put up your name. So this is Ethan Boldy.
okay, so this is Ethan who is playing Black in this game. So I guess my first question for you guys was this Bishop D7 move. Is this normal in the advanced French? I thought that normally Black was supposed to play Queen B6 here.
I don't know. I just wanted to get my bishop out.
Yeah.
'cause
I think normally it's Queen B6 and then Bishop D7.
Yeah, Queen B6 I've seen, and then White usually plays A3 or Bishop E2, or there's various moves, but I thought Bishop D7 here was a little bit strange, but okay, I'm not sure, because if I understand this correctly, I believe White is much better if he takes on C5 now. I think the whole point of starting with Queen B6 in this position is that after DC5, Bishop C5, White cannot go Bishop D3 and castle, but here after this, and White is ready to meet DC Bishop C5 with castle and then start playing B4 Bishop E3 very quickly. I thought White was just better, but I'm not exactly an expert on this. I've never played the advanced French from the
Yeah,
White side.
I mean, I think normally the last couple of times I've played against this, I've done D takes C5. I played castle, but there's a variation where if Black decides to go C takes D4, C takes D4, and does Knight takes D4, Knight takes D4, Queen takes, White can maybe play Knight C3.
Yeah, so I can't move the pieces on the board, unfortunately. I know this variation, and I thought after Knight C3, Black equalizes, or Black is better even after A6, but I could be wrong. This was
Yeah,
old theory.
yeah. I mean, I think Black's a little bit better after A6. It's just as White is it's an interesting game to play usually.
Okay, so you're willing to take a worse position with White, but just to keep the game interesting?
Well, I just hadn't played this variation in a while. I didn't know the exact valuation on A6, but I thought it would be. I thought it was about equal, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because here, and then here, it was interesting to me that first you were ready to sacrifice the pawn, and then after a very long think, you then decided to defend it. Can you talk about that decision?
Yeah. So the reason I was okay with it when the rook was on a8 was because after the whole like knight d4, queen d4, knight c3, if you play something like queen takes e5, I play rook e1, queen f3, and I have threats with things like knight b4, and the c7 square is unprotected.
Right.
But after the rook's on c8, I'm pretty uncomfortable with that.
But if you had played knight c3 here, it would just lead to the same position if black had wanted it, because black could have started with knight takes d4 in this position, and after knight takes d4, queen d4, knight c3, if he so desires, he can play rook c8 there, which I don't think is the best move. But
Okay.
Here, if you play knight c3, if he plays knight takes d4, that will simply transpose back to the main line, except where black is already committed to a less than optimal move.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a little strange, but at the same time, here I think you have got a better version of these solid structures, because I thought in the advanced French, the biggest drawback in white's position is that this knight doesn't have a great place to go, because knight d2 is hard to achieve with the pressure on the d4 pawn, and now that black has released the tension with c takes d4, knight c3 to a4 becomes possible. So for instance here, after knight e7, knight c3, knight f5, it looks like your pawn is coming under fire, but after knight a4 I think you have everything under control.
Yeah.
So I thought that white was probably still better here. And so why did you play f6?
I thought I could like take on e5 and then like his pawn on e5 is weak, and then I thought I could like do something on.
Well, his pawn on e5 turned out to be weak. You did end up taking it, but it was quite clear it came at the expense of your development.
Yeah.
And that's where things went wrong. I mean, so I'm very skeptical of opening your king like that when your development is incomplete. It's one thing in like the Tirage French where white hasn't castled yet and his knight on d2 is blocking his bishop from coming out, but here it feels like white is pretty well poised to take advantage of this late in development that he quickly gained, and because a6 also is very slow, and already here I thought after bishop e3 that black was more or less dead.
I was thinking instead of f6, maybe you can play knight g e7.
And after then knight c3?
Knight f5.
And knight a4? I thought this is what he should do, but I thought white was...
You know, yeah,
I thought white was slightly better, but not that much better, and I thought this is what black should be playing for.
I thought white was a bit better, but I thought it was better than playing f6.
Yeah, after f6 I think black will... I was about to say destined to die a slow death, but then I realized it wasn't going to be very slow. Because here, if black has to play a6, I mean, he's falling so far behind in development, and all the pieces, white's pieces, are jumping to life. Were you worried for your safety at this point, or not so much?
Yeah, I was kind of like, I was gonna play g6 here to like try to stop like bishop h5 stuff, but like I saw that he could play knight b5, and I just didn't like that, like d6 square.
Okay, so g6 looks like a more natural move to me, but because after a6, I mean, if you count what's happened here, queen c7, rook c1, queen b8, if we're counting what black has done, queen b6, queen c7, queen b8, f6, a6, these are lots of moves that are not developing your minor pieces and getting you castled, so it shouldn't be so surprising that you're falling behind on development the way you did. And here already I think the position is critical. And the analysis, I was debating if I wanted to be a psychopath and take on d5, but I don't think it's necessary. My guess is it's pretty good, but
yeah,
I think if
I looked at it, I just didn't think it was...
Knight a4 is the adult decision.
Yeah.
And here being boring, I thought you could have played queen c1, but
yeah.
For instance, after queen c1, chop chop, bishop d7, rook c7, and bishop c6, bishop takes a6, I thought black was completely busted.
Yeah. I saw that, but I thought queen d4. I didn't know what black could do after queen d4.
I mean, this is probably strong. I mean, if you've worked out knight c6 to the end,
exactly.
this is over. I mean, like here, strategically, if black had like two moves to go bishop d6 and castle, like obviously he'd be good. This is probably the kind of thing you were looking to get done, but it was too slow when you fell this far behind on development, and this was a very nice finish. At this moment, I actually predicted the end of the game up till this point, but I predicted that Black was going to resign here, which I was wrong about. Did any reason you didn't resign here?
I don't know. I just don't resign that much.
Okay. Did you think you were going to save this game?
No.
Okay. Yeah. Here, I think it doesn't matter here because you're not playing the next round tomorrow. But if you're playing like a normal open tournament and you need your rest, you get this position. It's better to call it a day. Because at this point, not too much else to say. But okay. But this was pretty good game from White, of course, and this is one of the top boards, right? You were on board 2, so you're on 3 points out of 3.
I took a bye, so I have 2.5.
Oh wow, okay, so wow.
So I think only board 1 has you had 2 points before this.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's not so bad then. So you can still come back, and then maybe you'll get the knucklehead next week. So. Yeah, okay, so thanks very much, guys, for your inputs. And,
yeah, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thanks much. Have a good one. Okay, so, and apparently Andy Lee, 1227, says Bishop D7 is normal. I don't know if 1227 is your rating, Andy Lee, but, okay. I'm sure it's a normal move. But, yeah, thanks. Have a good one. I'm sure it's a decent move. I just always thought Queen B6 was the way. Yeah, I know who Andy is. He was my first coach. I'm just being a jerk. No, I always thought that Black should start with Queen B6 because White has taken White has a static advantage with his extra space in the center, and as such, if the game proceeds along normal channels, I think he will be better, and as a result, I always sort of thought Queen B6 to put maximum pressure on White's center before he can complete his development was the best way to play, and I've played Queen B6 myself every time I got this position with Black, at least, although I don't play the French very often because I don't have the highest opinion of it. In any case, those are your thoughts from Jeevan and Ethan. So looks like we've got some other results in. Alexander Ivanov has won this game as White's desperate attempt to make something happen here fell on its face. It looks like he just resigned here after Rook C1, which seems like a prudent decision. So this was a good game from Black, who I think took advantage of some poor play from White. First in the opening, when after C5, instead of knight G3, e takes D5, he simply gave himself an isolated pawn without anything real to show for it, and a good version of the isolated pawn for Black. And then later on, when White voluntarily took on F6, which gave Black this very strong bishop and let him play G6 to secure his kingside without loosening the dark squares or anything like that. I thought this left White in a bad way, and it looks like Black went on to win a nice game. So other games going on, we have Tenzing Shah against Carlos Davila. And the game has followed almost exactly as I predicted, but I believed White was going to play bishop e4 here, although now I'm realizing that if he had done that, he would have walked into f5. This is probably why he played bishop e2. And now, at the end of all this, I think Black got more play than he deserved, but there's no way he's going to save this game against good play. I think he's just a pawn down for basically nothing. He's gotten more than he should have, but still, after something like queen takes h6, I just don't see it. If knight e5, there's queen e3, and everything is protected, and White should be winning without a ton of trouble. So, yeah, this, I think, is not a good advertisement for the St. George defense, not to be recommended. Next up is... Okay, so Sriram did play queen g6, which I thought was very strong, and after rook f4, White is able to put up a little bit of resistance, but Black should have no shortage of winning moves. The most natural one to me would be rook c to d8, trying to power through against the d4 pawn. Another very nice move might be bishop e7 when White cannot stop bishop g5, which should dislodge the rook on f4. And bring the game to its conclusion that way. So this, I think, looks very, very bad for White still. Queen g6, it's the move I originally wanted, and I'm starting to change my mind and think that it wasn't the easiest choice, but I do believe that black should be winning, and winning without a ton of trouble, with either bishop e7 or rook c to d8. And then Bandaran against Rudyak. Looks like there have been some developments. So white played b5, which I don't even care if this move wins the game on the spot. You should not do. That bishop should never be allowed a chance at life. Here I think the most obvious and best course of action is to go rook g1, put your bishop on e1 if needed, and take the g6 pawn, and this game is finished without any discussion whatsoever. After b5 though, c takes b5, bishop b4, we see why white gave up the pawn and freed black's bishop is that now black is getting checkmated by rook c6 next move, and it's not so easy to stop. After c5, dc, and bishop a5, and c6, this pawn went straight through. I guess white's point is that if rook a8 or something, there follows c7, rook c8, and rook c6 mate. So maybe any criticism I have is unwarranted because white had worked it out just a straight forced win, but still I don't love letting that bishop survive. In any case, white won this game after c8 queen. Black decided he'd seen enough, so this was a good name by Arman Baradaran, and seems like he won a very clean game without allowing any counter chances once black gave up the pawn on d5. So let me just close this and get rid of this name here, like that, and then I have to go back to the GGT boards, interact. Where transition? Here? Okay, so transition like that. Sorry guys, you have to bear with me. Well, I think the technical diagnosis is technologically retarded or something like that, but whatever it is, it's me. I'm good at playing chess and analyzing chess. I'm not good at making computers do what I want them to. So that's another result in. It looks like I only have a few games left. So Krishna Kumar has played bishop e7, which I think is one of a few moves that will bring this game to its conclusion. As soon as black can play f4, this game is finished, but I don't believe white can stop it. Maybe he can try knight f1 and to give an exchange on f4, but that also should not really save him because black will be able to open the f-file. So this game looks like it's in its concluding phases. Bishop e7 is a nice move. And Shaw against Avila. Okay, so white played g3, better safe than sorry, which is fine. Rook g3 here from Andy. Let's see exactly which moment you wanted that. Okay, so yes, this is where he wanted rook g3, but I don't think it will save white. There's going to be several problems with this move. Starting with bishop g5, when after ef and gf, the threat of bishop takes f4 should be devastating. Maybe you can play knight f1, but queen h6 looks crushing. Yeah, Andy, you're right. This was the best move. It's the best try, but I don't think you're saving anybody. Probably the easiest now actually is queen h6 because now the rook has nowhere to go, and then I might even play g5 instead of bishop g5 if I'm feeling particularly psychotic. But then there's gf now. Just queen h6 is pretty convincing. I certainly don't see any sensible way out after that. So that I think will get the job done. I see a funny variation that probably isn't that great, but is kind of cute, is to go bishop h4. Nah, but bishop h4 there is g takes f5. Still, bishop h4 now, rook g2, e3, and then knight f3, f takes g4, rook takes g4, and queen takes g4 is kind of nice, but it's moot because after bishop h4, white should play g takes f5. But yeah, queen h6 here, bishop g5 first, and then queen h6. There should be no shortage of ways to win. So I fully expect Krishna Kumar to win this game. What's with people wearing coats? What would you rather than wear bikinis at chess clubs? I don't know what you want. I mean, coats are, it's just, we care about chess games, not apparel. So in this Michael Lin against Guy Argo, which started with a blunder on the first move of the game with f5, we last picked up after d5. And I thought that black was in trouble, but then rook e8 came, which could be very clever, because now if d takes c6, there will follow e takes f3 when the dual threats of mate on g2 and the rook on e1 will be a problem. And now it looks like white is thinking, possibly spending his time kicking himself for missing this resource, but I still think white is pleasantly better if he... I still think white is pleasantly better if he just continues normally with a move like queen f2, or perhaps bishop g3. So this should be pretty good for white still. And then Mercado against Mohamed Mansour, our defending champion in the B section. When we last checked, I thought this position was absolutely finished. At d6, it looks like white is losing everything, and after queen h4, this position looks like it belongs in a chess.com puzzle rush. There should be a forced win here, but I'm not seeing it yet. Of course, black can play something like g5, which forces a queen exchange on e1 when the endgame should be absolutely horrible for white and probably just lost, but I feel like there should be something more violent, although I don't see it immediately. Maybe you can play rook f8 here, and then after rook f1 it should be winning, but it's not that easy to just see lights out. Rook f8, rook f1, maybe maybe then rook takes f3 and queen f3 and g5 should win, but feels a little loose. Rook f8, white can also play rook f1 when he's kind of alive. I mean, it's, I don't know, maybe you should just be an adult and play g5 and queen e1 and accept that it will take some time, but that the endgame will win. I don't know, but I do expect black to win this game. White's got no counterplay, black's pieces are better, and he's a clean pawn up. So with these 4 games left, Winslow Krishna Kumar is still there. Rook d1 from, and now Davila has played queen f6. So this is exactly what I didn't want to have happen for white. Now the b2 pawn is coming under fire, and the f3 knight perhaps, but I think queen h5 is quite a good move in response, because now black cannot take on b2 because of queen takes f7, and black is still down material. But it feels like white could have been more accurate than this, but I still think he's winning. So bishop e5 has been played, obviously pointing out that if knight takes e5 that the light squares have been critically weakened, but I'm not sure I believe it. For instance, after knight takes e5, knight takes e5, f4, black cannot take because of rook d8 check, and once the knight retreats, bishop f3 will come, and that looks, I think once white takes over that diagonally, he should win without any discussion. So, what is my opinion on the Sinkfield Cup
Yes.
no draw for rule? I don't really have an opinion or care. I mean, I don't generally offer draws myself until the position is like dead. So it wouldn't affect my games in the slightest. If it tires my opponents out, it's fine. I think people care way too much about formats and not enough about moves. It's a fantastic tournament they're playing. I hope one day I'm strong enough to play it myself. Obviously, I'm not good enough now, but you know, I think we should focus more on the games these guys play as opposed to small tinkers to the rules.
Okay.
Okay, so it looks like we have another player who won a game today that we can
You should be in transition.
that we can look at.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay. So
There you go.
okay, so
Hi, Sam.
hi. Okay, so we had this game here to just share some thoughts.
Right, what do you think?
Well, I thought it looked like white made a poor decision in the opening to give himself a version of the IQP like this, because normally in these IQP positions, black has to do some work to play b6 because he's often getting hit by d5, but here in this version d5 isn't really a thing, and I thought that at this point black was already slightly better. Was that your feeling as well?
Well, I was somewhat cautious about early d5s anywhere. So, but I didn't see anything.
Right, because, well, you have put the bishop on b4 and he has put his bishop on d3, so early d5s are not a thing, and he has played knight e4 and knight c3. I mean, he's fallen behind, so...
I wasn't sure about this bishop b4, bishop e7 swing.
I thought this was absolutely fine and totally normal.
Okay.
But rook c1... I mean, the best setup for white is, like, bishop b3, bishop a2, queen d3, rook a d1, a3, but he's so far away from that, it feels like...
Well, I think rook c1 is an attempt to get there somewhere, like rook c1, bishop b1,
so like
maybe queen d3,
he could
maybe
have,
a3 and bishop
he could have
a2.
tried a3 here to stop knight b4.
Yeah, I was thinking, I was wondering what's gonna happen and how I'm gonna route the knight to d5 if early a3 gonna be played.
I think after a3 you can play h6, and then white has to choose what to do with his bishop. If he plays bishop h4, you can go knight h5. When you will then take back with the knight on e7 and go knight f4, and if he goes knight g3, you'll take it and go bishop f6. Normally in these positions it becomes very dangerous because white's bishop will be on a square like a2, and then d5 becomes dangerous when your knight is gone, but because he has misplaced it here, after a3, h6, bishop h4, knight h5, I think you're pleasantly better, and after h6, if he plays something like bishop f4, you can go bishop d6 then and knight e7. I think this is probably the way for you to do it.
Okay, so it's instead of routing it through b4, it's somehow
H6
through e7. And
yeah, I mean, it has to be done carefully, and I think h6 is an important part of that plan, because if you start with knight h5, then white can maybe play like bishop e3, but by starting with h6, you're immediately asking that bishop where it wants to go, and you will either go bishop d6, knight e7, or you will, after bishop h4, you'll play knight h5 with a good position. I had a game like this with Diego Flores earlier this year, actually.
I mean, one concern about h6, I mean, probably in the variations that you just mentioned it works, but maybe later on, and then it just probably white just don't have time for that, is that when they're ready to play queen d3 and h6 is already played, then taking on f6, bishop takes f6, and then kind of queen d3.
The problem is for white, if he's going to do that, if he wants that plan, he has to play bishop h4, and when he plays bishop h4, knight h5 comes and immediately forces this exchange.
Okay.
Because if he brings the bishop somewhere else, then queen d3 will never be a problem, because the knight on f6 cannot be removed. So
I thought I'm going to be forced to play g6 along with h6. How do you say it's not a problem?
So let's say a3, h6.
So let's say bishop on b1 and
okay, well,
they
let's start with this. a3, h6. What does white play?
Bishop b1.
With the bishop hanging on g5.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, bishop h4.
And then knight h5.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously you don't have. I mean, yeah, you have time for that.
Right.
But let's say.
If white was a tempo faster with
say bishop already on b1. Imagine this position, right? You're playing
h6, bishop h4, knight h5, queen d3, and then g6 should be fine for black because the bishop has no way to attack the g6 pawn.
Okay, so you're saying that these 2 pawns are fine on g6 and h6.
If the dark squared bishops have been exchanged, then yes.
Right.
But only if the dark squared bishops have been exchanged.
Okay, got it. I see.
So that's.
Got it. Okay.
I thought that would be the way to go. In any case, after bishop b1, you didn't have to bother with any of that because the knight got to d5 more organically. And here I thought bishop f6 was strategic suicide, and unless there is some very concrete reason he shouldn't be doing it. Did you have any insights after?
Yeah, I thought basically he is going for, he's attacking h7 somehow, but I mean, I calculated there is no perpetual. I mean, I think one of the hopes were perpetual, like by taking double sacrifice on g6 at some point, but it's not just coming together.
Yeah, I mean, once you have safely played g6, your king is safe forever.
Yeah, keyword is safely because, again, knight g6 is not an option because at the end of the variation there is a bishop g7.
Yeah, this.
And there is.
But also knight g6. Even if you go f g6, bishop g6, and rook c7, rook g7, you're gonna mate him before he mates you, and you're a piece up. I mean, this is. I think at this point it's pretty clear. If white has no pieces towards the attack, it's not going to succeed.
Well, that's actually eventually almost that happened in the game.
Yeah.
I mean, when he sacrificed on f7.
Right. So at this point, I thought you had played a good game. I didn't love knight f6. It's a fine move. I just thought it was easier to play either knight b4 or knight e7 to try to get this knight somewhere to attack the d4 pawn. I thought knight
So
e7.
what do you think instead of knight f6?
I thought the best move was knight e7, but
Knight e7.
and then bring the knight to f5.
That's funny. I mean, Sam, it didn't even occur to me. Knight
Okay,
e7.
I mean, basically, if you think about it, all of your pieces that are capable of attacking the d4 pawn are attacking the d4 pawn, except for the knight on d5.
So you're routing it to f5?
That would be my thought. You could also play knight b4 here. These were my
And what would happen if bishop takes f5? I mean,
well, after he takes f5, white should be basically busted. He will. I mean, the rook c2 will come very quickly as soon as this bishop is traded. So.
because the entrance is clear on c file. Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought this made some sense. But,
Okay. That's interesting. That's route didn't even occur to me for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, the knight on f6 doesn't seem that great, but it's certainly enough to win because now after queen b4, you're attacking the queen side instead. And here, yeah, I thought.
I mean, I was kind of predicament like whether to grab it or what.
Yeah, but I think so.
And I think we need to. I mean, that's need to be calculated, but.
Yeah,
I mean,
but it shouldn't.
what
be
he
too
demonstrated is the best. I mean, it's the best I guess White could do, and there was nothing there.
hard. Yeah, he doesn't have nearly enough firepower to checkmate you here. And then at the end, in fact, White was the one getting mated. So this looked like a very clean game. It felt like you got a clear positional advantage early on, and it might look like White just went down without a fight, but he probably felt like he needed to do something desperate because the game clearly he wasn't going to save it by normal means. It just looks so horrible that.
Yeah, it would be interesting to hear his side of the story, but I think you may be right about kind of desperate.
Yeah.
Attempt to find something radical.
Because I don't know. I mean, like if White just wants to buckle down here and like play Queen f4 and or something and play an absolutely miserable endgame with no counterplay, like he's just not going to save this position. You might be here for another 2 hours, but he's not going to save the game.
Yeah, but that would be like technical game against like maybe pawn up, basically, right?
Yeah, it's just you're just winning. I mean,
Which is gonna be just a different kind of type of the game.
right. Or, I mean,
Like
here.
like you would say, set game to play or set move to
Like
play.
here, you could sort of imagine. I could think of a way to lose this game with Black or to blunder something. If
No.
you're
This
careful.
game is already lost. I'm talking
Right.
about technical game, like
Right.
without all of the sacrifices. Just say, well, I guess after b2 is dropped and the d4 gonna fall at some point. So
yeah, I mean, it's so lost. You just have to try this and hope that Black blunders, but it's a pretty meager hope. I mean, but I don't even know what the threat is for White here. If it's White to move, I don't even know if he has it. Okay, Bishop takes g6, Queen e6, Knight g6 mate is his threat, but that's I don't know. I mean, I guess this was worth a try. Like hope for Bishop d5 and then take with the rook on e6 and hope that you blunder with Bishop takes e6, but.
well, I mean that was an option. I thought actually it was nothing horrible. I mean, knight e6, bishop e6, queen e6, queen.
No, then you're good. But if he plays rook takes e6 here instead, then you cannot take on e6 because he will start with bishop takes g6. and you get mated.
Okay, I missed.
But after rook
yeah,
e6, rook c1,
Right,
or rook
right,
e8
okay,
or something,
okay.
just any other move.
Can we go back a little bit to the early game, like really early game? Like, what would you recommend? I mean, is there a better way for White
I
to
think
play this,
first
or
of
maybe
all,
the better way for Black improve with the game?
I thought you played very well the whole way through.
Okay.
I think White should put his bishop on c4.
on c4.
Because he wants to be able to threaten d5. Which will force you to, like, for example, if he plays bishop c4, castle, b6, a3, you have a decision to make. Do you fix his pawns and give him the bishop pair, or do you let him play d5? It's. I think you should be absolutely fine after bishop takes c3 because you're White has hanging pawns and you have good development. But it's hard for me to believe Black's better there. I think that something like that would have been more prudent. And okay, White's certainly not better, but he's probably not worse either. I mean, once he has played bishop d3. A good rule of thumb in these isolated queen pawn positions is the bishop belongs on d3 when Black's other knight is like close to d5, while the bishop belongs on c4 if the knight's on c6, and here the knight is on c6. If the knight were on d7 to then go to b6, then the bishop would be misplaced. But here I think.
Well, I think in general, and the Black Knight on c6 is better positioned, right? I mean, I don't know.
Well, it depends. It's much better positioned if White's bishop is on d3. Basically, you're threatening White's weak isolated pawn. If you have firmly controlled the blockading square, then that's good. But if you're worried about the blockading square, for instance, after bishop c4 here, castle, and then a3 is coming,
Uh-huh.
then the knight on c6, you're starting to wonder, wait a minute, he's about to hit me with d5 and I haven't stopped it. That's when you think, oh, wouldn't the knight be better on d5?
Uh-huh.
But given that white has not threatened d5, and you have firmly controlled the blockading score, now the knight on c6 is perfect. So I think that here white is simply worse. It seems to me black has a very comfortable position,
I see.
and maybe white could have tried bishop f6 and d5 here, which feels a little desperate already, but just knight b4 then, and black is winning. So it's a very difficult position for white already, I think. He's probably only slightly worse, but the problem is he's slightly worse and he will always be slightly worse. He has no clear plan to equalize, and black's moves are extremely easy. Just develop the rooks, and as mentioned, he probably could have tried a3 when you would have had to know this h6, knight h5 idea, and if you don't know that, it might not be that easy to find it over the board.
Well, I wasn't sure about exactly how, but I realized I do need some kind of simplification, over this pin, right? I mean, and I think you suggested a good one. I was thinking about like knight d5 and something like that.
Yeah, that's probably fine. I just think h6 and knight h5 is the right plan.
Got it. Well, thank you so much, Sam, for the insights. I think it's very helpful.
Okay, so thanks for joining and showing the game.
And then let me switch the names because you have
Okay.
another guest, the
Okay,
winner of
and who are you?
Mansoor.
Mansoor, okay.
Yeah, and
I have told them that they need to force you to play the Open if you have won the class section already.
yeah, they were like,
So
it was
too much winning. Did you
it
win
was-
today too?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And I'm
it's too
excited
much.
because I'm sitting next to Sam.
We're gonna have Sam play you now.
Okay, so we're here with, I guess, the defending champion from the B section now.
AB, yes,
yeah,
AB.
The what?
AB, we call it AB section because it's going up all the way to the end of A, right? So
Wait.
it's under 2000 section.
Oh, okay, I see.
So we call it AB,
Okay.
not just B.
Yeah, okay.
Because you're definitely an A player now.
Thanks.
Okay, so here we had an interesting game. I was curious about this move, bishop g4. Could you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Like, I was thinking a lot on that move because I wasn't sure, like, it could have gone so many ways. Like, once if he moves queen c1 or queen e1, I had no clue what I'm gonna do next. So, I mean, I was just planning if he takes, I'm gonna take the knight first, and then if he asks check, my king would go inside, and then.
Right. I just thought that here you're developing white's queen for him and losing your bishop pair. So.
Oh really? Oh okay, yeah, the pair I'm gonna lose. Yeah.
I thought if you played like rook fd1 here, white might be slightly better. I'm not sure. Maybe you have knight c4.
Yeah.
I was trying to understand what is happening in this position after rook fd1, knight c4, queen e6 check, king h8, queen takes c6, when I think you have to play knight takes e3, queen takes c5, knight takes d1.
Well, I can't go till there. I really couldn't keep up with your pace, so sorry about that.
So I was thinking white would play rook fd1 here, and
Yes,
then knight
and then
c4
knight-
attacks the bishop, and then I thought after queen e6 check,
Right, king
h8, and queen takes c6. I thought you have to take the bishop now.
Right.
Queen c5, knight d1, rook d1, and now you will be in exchange up, but this pawn will come to e6, so it's very powerful.
Yeah.
And the knight on d4 is very well positioned, and I thought that white had good compensation.
Yes, but then the main reason why I played this bishop to g4 was because my opponent always plays this line, and then I saw a lot of games where there were like bishop comes on g4 and goes to e2, and I don't know exactly the game where the bishop just gets sacrificed. For some other, I mean, it was a different variation, but then I just had that.
Right. So maybe this was actually not so bad. Perhaps you should have played queen c1 as you're proposing. I mean, this position. Maybe I just don't remember this stuff at all. But like, I thought you were supposed to play queen e7 here.
Queen e7.
And then the point being knight d2, your knight gets to d6. I thought that's how they were playing it, but I could be wrong. It's been a very long time since I've ever checked this variation.
Yeah, last time when I played him in the opening itself, I went to knight d7 that line instead of here
back
I
in this
went to,
position.
yeah,
at
yeah.
D7.
Here I went to knight d2 and I won the knight d7 and I won the game against the same opponent. So I
Right.
just thought of preparing a new line, and
Yeah,
I
sure.
wasn't sure about this line either.
Right.
Like, yeah,
Yeah, no, it seems like he got a pretty decent position because here after knight f5, I think I was curious why you didn't take this rook.
oh, I didn't take that rook because if I take again the knight, the knight goes to f5.
And then after g6.
I didn't think about g6. I was just thinking about rook f7
But
actually
then
at
e6
that point.
will come, right? Then e6 is a problem.
Yeah, e6 is a problem, and
Right.
rook e7, and then
Oh, but okay, this makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe you could have gotten more out of it, but a clean pawn up for absolutely nothing is
yeah. Here
hard
I
to
felt
argue with.
more comfortable playing, and then here I had thoughts of taking b2 pawn, but then it was
Not bothering.
it was silly to do that.
Yes, of course.
So yeah, I thought there were lots of mating options, but then I was very excited again, but then I couldn't find a clear mate.
Yeah. I mean, knight d6 here. If he had played like rook a f1 or something, you may have
Yeah.
had some work to do in this
Yeah,
endgame.
right. I just thought of taking takes.
Yeah, just trade everything, but
yeah.
then your pawn structure's a little compromised. You can go rook f4,
Exactly.
rook a4, and try to
Yeah,
make trouble.
I was
for
thinking
you.
he's gonna double up, but then he played this weird move. I didn't like this.
This is horrible.
Yeah.
And then when we last saw the game, it was around here, and I thought there should be something out of Puzzle Rush, but I couldn't figure out
Yeah,
what.
I couldn't either. Like, but there was somewhere I thought my knight will come to. Let's say, after rook, this one. If he would have played queen e1, I thought of asking check on knight f2, king g1, and rook into
F3.
Oh, sorry. First rook into f3, I think. Something where my knight goes here, and if takes, it was a mate somewhere like that.
I think I
don't
see
know.
your variation. He wants queen
Yeah.
e1, knight f2, check king g1, knight h3, check king f1, and rook takes f3.
Yeah.
Yes, that's very nice. Here I thought White could put some resistance if he plays rook f1, but I didn't. I thought that was his only move.
Yes, even I thought rook was gonna come on f1, but then
Okay, you're pawn up, but
yeah,
you will still have to work a bit.
yeah.
Because
So-
after rook e1 here, this should be lost very quickly.
Yeah.
Rook takes f3 is not working? And queen d8 check.
Yeah,
Right.
that was not good for me. So
Right,
I
yeah, 'cause-
saw that move, but then
That's nice, because
yeah.
this trick, rook f3, if g f3, there's queen f3 check and g5 and black wins, but after rook
Yeah.
f3, queen d8 check is strong.
yeah. But then if rook was on f1, I couldn't have just played g5 directly. If he plays rook f1 now,
And then, rook f1, g5, queen e,
G5.
and queen e1.
queen e1. Oh,
Yes.
okay.
And then, well, I mean, you're probably winning, or definitely
Yeah.
winning this position, but it will just take you some work.
Some work,
because endgame will.
Hey Sam, also I said Vidit to watch this live stream. I don't know if he's watching, so let's say hi to him.
Who's watching?
Vidit, you're close.
Vidit Gujarati?
Yeah, I'm
Wow.
in stuff.
Vidit, you're watching this?
I don't know. I just told him on chat to watch.
It's middle of the
it.
night in India. Go back to sleep.
No, it's early morning
Oh, yeah?
now. It's
Oh,
like
okay.
10 a.m. there.
Oh, okay.
So I don't
Also,
know.
somebody saying you're rattling off moves faster than Naka. So
As fast as Naka?
yeah.
I don't think
As fast
anybody
as
is as fast as Hukura, but that's what Frank Berry used to call him back in the day. So after rook e1, queen
Yeah.
b6 it's kind of a sad move, but at the same time it's so obvious that black will win this game that you shouldn't have to worry too much. And after b3 now he will lose his rook.
Yeah.
Okay, and he resigned as he is facing the loss of his rook. Okay, so good stuff, and
Thank you.
well, if you keep this up, maybe you'll get promoted by force.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well,
Your
hopefully I'll
rating
register
increases,
one.
but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
Alright.
are the other games over?
Nice
also?
game.
I think there's like one or two more left.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sam, there's old high school
I
moves.
was way older than you, but my name's Glenn. I went to CPS as well.
Okay.
I
Oh,
just
yeah?
wanted to say hi.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
a Christian as well. And,
Oh yeah? What year were you?
95.
Oh yeah, okay. I was too.
I don't know if Titlebaum was teaching when we were there.
Who?
Mike Titlebaum was a math teacher.
Oh,
when
it
we
doesn't
were
matter.
there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd tell her.
You can stay too.
I don't know.
Two
Was
and
that-
I had Chrisman, yeah,
Oh,
but
okay.
this
We can stay
was
another
much
day.
later. I mean, I was 2009.
Yeah, I
So
got
I
you
was-
by many years.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much for sharing your game, and good luck in the rest.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.
There was some players minor too, but no.
Thank you.
All right.
And also Michael and David Askin, obviously.
And David Askin.
Okay. So,
Michael is still going.
yeah, I think he blundered something because Black's position sort of turned around a bit, but this is still very, very dangerous for Black after here. After, like, Rook takes c4, F takes c4, and c4, Black is
Okay.
much worse. And I'm not on the board. But
Not on the board. Let me take a picture maybe, and then I can show you the picture and you can analyze it. Okay? I'm gonna.
Can you
Yeah.
take a picture?
Take a picture. Yeah,
Which
Daniel Perlov, Alexander Perlov. Daniel is wondering.
Oh, Alexander Perlov.
Yeah. So.
how's my dad doing? You got a kid watching his dad?
Yeah. They are a duo. They are really good.
That's cool.
They are also. I think Daniel is a good player too.
Okay.
He's 17. Yeah, Daniel is I think around 1400, 1300, 1400. Oh, it's still Mohammed. Oh, I didn't transition. I always forgot to transition. There you go.
Okay, so
It's getting
I don't know. I only have the games available here, and
I
this
know.
This one still
We
looks very
have-
dangerous for Black. So
Okay.
this is Michael Lin against this guy Argo, and this looks very, very dangerous for Black. Bishop h4 is on the way, and Black's king is
Yeah, Daniel is a mechanics
really
regular.
gonna get
and
taken for a ride.
Alexander.
So his dad is Black.
Okay, his dad
and
is.
he's playing against
Christian Clemens.
His dad's playing against my old high school friend.
Yes.
And yeah, so Daniel Perlov, your dad has a good position against a pal of mine from high school. So we're gonna have to see which of our friends is gonna come through. Okay, so
Yay! He says which is such an active club near me.
okay, so here instead of knight takes e5, which I thought should have been played after b3, bishop c3 has happened, and now at the end of all this, Black has reached an endgame, and now White has actually given back his extra pawn, and I don't understand why.
It's gonna move the camera.
Okay, so
Okay,
White
Daniel,
just.
look out.
Sorry, what?
Something gonna happen.
Juan's gonna move the camera to Perlov's game.
The little camera.
Little camera.
What is F pawn saying I was so funny about?
I don't know.
I don't know. F pawn, what did I say that was funny? I don't even know.
So look at
You know you're a good comedian when you're not trying to be funny, but people just think what you say is hilarious. But
This comes naturally.
I don't know. I'm
What's he doing?
a bit of a doofus.
Ah,
All right.
I gotta understand. That's not good. That's-
Which of our friends will
I feel
win?
like
I
it's
see.
way past
Okay.
Perlov's bedtime though. So.
Yeah, Daniel, go to bed. You have school
Okay, so
tomorrow.
we're 10,
Oh,
13 p.m.
high school is hard.
Okay.
I know.
All right. High school sucks.
High school sucks. I agree.
Shouldn't have to go. Although I've always sort
Which
of
was
believed
your
that
favorite year in high school?
gap year. No.
You had a gap year?
I guess my senior year, but I
Did you have a gap year?
between high school and college.
Oh, I
But,
see.
no, I always hated high school, and I always thought it made it an unlevel playing field that all the best U.S. juniors never had to go, and I did. But yeah, that's how it goes. I learned how to socialize and how to do things that a lot of
Or did you move the big
homeschool
camera?
kids can't do. So, yeah, here I don't know why White felt the need to give back his extra pawn. I think he should be much better if he plays f4, for example, and starts to get his king into the game. This is very surprising to me. And then,
I'm trying to see if. What's up?
that's frozen.
This is frozen. How can I refresh it?
Go ahead.
How can I refix it?
I need to go there. I need to go there.
Okay, they want. Yeah. Because it's.
Okay, so in the meantime, while they're fixing the cameras and stuff, we can.
So everyone, we would like to give a little surprise to Daniel. Hopefully.
Yeah, I've fun. I haven't seen Sriram's position recently, but last I checked, he had just played Queen G6 and Bishop E7, and
There
I
you go.
thought
Thank you.
Black was in massive trouble.
No, not the host camera. The other one. Up, one more up. There you go. And then transition. Nice. Okay.
Okay.
And then I'll give back the board to you so we can take a look at Sriram's position. Do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So, Daniel Perlov. So Christian Clemens, your dad's opponent, was the same year as me in high school, but he was younger than all of us by like a year and a half because he was like a genius or something. And so and he also developed late, so he was very small compared to the rest of us. And our nickname for him was Ant. Very affectionate. Okay, so after Queen H6, as happened here, I thought White had to try something extremely desperate. Maybe, Knight takes E4 or something ridiculous, but it should just be lost instead. F4 came, and then F3 came, and I don't even know why White is still playing this game. Sometimes it's just time to call it a day, which I think he may do right now.
We made a high schooler happy.
Yeah, okay. Anything to improve you during that deeply traumatic part of your life.
Yeah.
I think that Krishna Kumar is completely winning. I think this Shaw game will be the one that goes the longest, and if he fails to beat the St. George, that's not good. And now is Rook takes C4 on the way? It might be.
Her name is there, so take a seat.
Oh.
I don't know. Rook takes C4 might be coming.
I forgot that it was called the St. George.
Bishop E2. White has really lost control here. This is not good. Bishop D4 check, and you're gonna get harassed. So here, after Bishop D4 check, you cannot allow Knight B6, so you must walk in King F1, Knight E3, and is it possible the St. George will win? That will be depressing, particularly for this Tenzing Shah. Yeah, things have gone sufficiently wrong that it game may end. And in this Michael Lin game, Black is close. I'm going to offer some resistance, actually, but I can't believe he's going to hold after Bishop H4 next.
It's kind of an odd night because usually it's one of the broadcast 10 boards. They're always the last game, last 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. And today, a lot of the lower boards, they're still going, so
yeah.
Like the moon's out.
Has Winslow resigned this yet? He played H3, not H5.
I think Krishna Kumar might have.
Sorry, how do you even defend the pawn after like Rook CD8? That's Krishna Kumar.
I think he may have done U.S. chess school at some point.
Yeah, he did that last year. So he played H5, which is certainly good enough and probably the best move. And now this game is finished. It was a very nice game. You can clearly see whose majority was better.
And this is his first.
Okay, so Andy suggested Queen E3, but then Bishop G5 would have come. So I don't know. Andy, for some reason, feels the need to try to defend White's position which cannot be done, but Andy always wants the impossible.
The again, you dad.
Yeah, so
up late probably because of the.
So I guess we're keeping him company while he's changing the diapers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was to defend D4, and then Bishop G5 will kick your queen away, and then I will take it.
Oh. Nice. Hi,
So-
Andy.
Yeah, he's changing the diaper, feeding the baby.
Don't feel bad for Andy. He's,
No, he has a new baby smell at home. That's always good.
New baby smell.
New baby smell, no?
New baby
New baby smell.
smell.
Yeah, smell.
Yeah, no, I know the feeling, and so do you.
You know the
Many times over, yeah.
Yeah. That first couple of weeks, that's the best.
Okay,
Then
so
it goes down.
really,
But we digress. We digress.
the baby's just pooping right now. And
They are.
Speaking of
I
pooping,
don't know, why did everybody have babies? It's such a
New baby.
humans would be so much better off if nobody had kids.
We'd be extinct.
Okay, so here, King H2, and now let's see if Krishna Kumar plays Rook F5, at which point Winslow may finally decide he has seen enough. Who is your favorite player from the past and nowadays? Carlsen from 3 years ago, just like he said before his match.
There he is. Krishna Kumar is about to move.
And, really? King G2, really? I guess if King F1 there was Knight takes F4 anyway with Rook C1 check or something, but no, then there's Bishop takes F4 defending C1, but who's your favorite player from the past and nowadays? You know what, I'm gonna say two favorite players, Kramnik and Polgar, because they have one thing in common. Who knows what that is?
Should we give a prize for someone that gets it and get a signed chess book?
I don't know, I think it's...
He resigned. Elliot resigned.
Alright,
I
so...
think he played it.
Yeah, so Krishna Kumar did play Rook F5,
Yeah.
and White decided he'd seen enough.
Yeah.
So Black won a...
Very nice.
I played them in their last game, that's half right. Now, yeah, so this was a nice game from Krishna Kumar, who just put on a clinic of
And I'll see if I can get
what you're
him.
supposed to do.
Get him in.
Yeah, so I beat both Kramnik and Polgar in their last game before they retired. That was a dubious honor. Did Tarjan beat Polgar? No, I don't think so. No, it's quite flattering that everybody thinks I'm so darn stupid that if they lose to me they have to retire. It's, you know, that everyone thinks you're an idiot if that's what happens. But, yeah, so it looks like we're joined by Sriram Krishna Kumar, who won a nice game over Elliot Winslow. So maybe you can share with us some of your thoughts.
Yeah, I had prepared this before the game, and
Okay.
I was just thinking that.
My understanding was F4 is a mistake and he is
Yeah.
supposed to play Knight BD2, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and after Knight BD2 you had a way to equalize?
After knight d2, c5.
And after C takes D5 then?
Yeah, e takes d5.
I thought Averick wrote about this in his book and claimed White was better there, but I'm not sure. I thought that after Knight BD2, C5 and CD5 you're supposed to take with the bishop on D5, but I thought White was slightly better somehow. Maybe I'm wrong, but the whole point is that White definitely wants to play Knight D2, no matter what Black does.
Yeah.
But he does not necessarily want to play F4 because after C5 Black is breaking the center before White can clamp the king side, and then already here I thought Black was better. Was that
Yeah.
your impression as well?
Yeah, I thought it might be equal or better. I don't think White's better.
Right, because if you're able to play Knight takes D2 and Knight F6 to E4, then you will have the E4 square and he will not have the E5 square.
Yeah.
So, and then
Yeah, I think my past pawn's just too good. But,
yeah, and here I was very curious about Rook C8. I didn't understand this move. What were you trying to accomplish?
I was thinking he was gonna take on d7 and c5.
Okay, I don't think that should bother you because he is blunting the bishop. I thought that White's best plan at this point was to play Rook FD1 and Knight F1 to E3.
Yeah,
which
I thought that.
is prophylaxis as well against you taking on E5 because
Yeah.
then FE5 and D5 comes very fast.
Yeah.
one. I thought it was complicated, but rook c3 here, I thought you should have taken on e5 directly because I wanted your bishop coming to g5 instead of your queen on e7 getting in the way. Did you consider that?
Yeah, I was thinking of knight takes e5, bishop e7. I just thought rook g3 or rook h3.
Maybe. So here and then g4
yeah, g4 is bad.
was psychotic, I thought. I didn't understand this at all. So
Yeah, I think this is where everything went wrong for white.
Yeah. I don't know what he was thinking he's accomplishing. If he thought he was gonna somehow make you on the G file or what. I mean, I don't know what white wants with this move. It feels completely wrong to me.
I think the idea was to get the rook to g3, but still there's nothing, I don't think.
I suppose. So takes, and now after fe, bishop b4, and rook h3, queen g5, bishop c1. So the way you chose was very stylish. I was curious if you had given any thought to making an extremely boring move like queen takes g4, which I think wins without any discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just winning, but I didn't want to play an endgame.
Okay, well, Boris Gelfand once said as soon as you see a move with 100% certainty of winning, you play it and ask questions later, but maybe that wouldn't have given us the kind of flash that you showed. This bishop e7 was a very nice maneuver, and white is very clearly busted here.
Knight takes e4 doesn't work.
Because of, and then the bishop on c1 is unprotected. And what if plays knight takes e4 at this moment?
I'm sorry. I'm actually just going to sit down now and enter the game. So. We were kind of busy.
Queen d6.
Yes, this is what I thought as well.
Yeah, that endgame of the piece.
I don't even think there will be an endgame, but yeah, then rook back to c3. So this whole rook c3, rook g3, rook c3, g4 felt like it did not add up very well. Well, in the meantime, black center just crashed straight through. And here, I thought you were actually going to be a little bit sadistic here and play rook cd8 when he cannot defend the d4 pawn, and your rook then enters the game.
I thought that
yeah, I mean, every legal move here wins, I think. But h5 is, I'm sure, the best move, but I thought rook cd8 was kind of sadistic. What is the level of the players in this game? You guys are like 2200?
I'm 2000, but...
Okay. So this kid here is like, I don't know, smaller than my dog, is like 2,000 already, which is pretty ridiculous.
I would contest that shit every fight.
I don't know, how much do you weigh? How much do you weigh?
I'm like 90.
Okay, he's bigger than my dog, but not that much bigger than my dog. All right. Yeah, and white is like 2200 or so. So this was something of an upset, but black played a very clean game, and here white resigned with checkmate on the way, which was extremely brutal and well, very one-sided. I think he made some big mistakes early on, but lots of players make big mistakes that go unpunished, and it's your duty to punish them, and it looks like you did a very good job. So congratulations, and good luck in the upcoming rounds.
Yeah, thanks.
Sure, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
When does your school start?
August 20th.
28th. Oh man, you have
Okay.
still time.
And so Carlos Davila has won this game after showing up 40 minutes late and playing the St. George. So for anyone who still believes in Kayesa, I present today as evidence to the contrary.
And Michael and Gary are still playing, right?
Michael Lynn's still playing, and it's probably going to be playing for a while. We've got an endgame on her. No, actually, this is checkmate in 2 moves. So if he finds queen c8, queen f8, I get to go home.
Yes, hopefully. Hopefully they find.
I don't know what he's thinking about. Queen c8, queen f8 is just checkmate.
Who's gonna win?
Michael.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna input that result.
Okay, so the TD is suggesting that the result will be inputted already. But if white doesn't find queen c8, there might still be some, like if black gets to play rook e2 back next move and save this rook, and sort of take the pawn and run with it, I think it's not so easy, but well, queen c8 is mate in 2. I don't know why he's thinking so long. Does it look like we have the right position? Yeah, it does. So, I don't know. But I want to go home and take my money that's going to like cover 10% of this nonsense. What happened to my hand? There was a falling glass Tupperware that I tried to catch, and it hit the counter first with my hand right on top of it, and I got a really nasty gash and severed a tendon in my left pinky. I have surgery on Thursday to reattach it that will be extremely expensive despite decent health insurance. I'm rated about 1200 at catching glass objects. No, much lower than that. I didn't even realize it was glass. It had a plastic lid. I thought the whole thing was plastic, but alright. Is he still not playing Queen C8? Does he not see it, or is he just being a troll?
It's late.
Okay. Maybe he's trying to figure out if there's another winning move.
Surprisingly few draws today.
Where, here or in the Sinkfield Cup?
No, here. I guess our players are.
When am I coming over to did I ever scare Dana? I don't know. Was she scared of me for some reason?
Maybe.
I don't know. When do you want me to come to your house? Maybe when I like have a working hand. I think Lynn sees it. I think he's just being a troll. She's not currently scared of me, then she's not very smart. I scared her. Apparently I scared Andy's daughter. Certainly not on purpose. Was that when I brought you the copy of my book?
Surprisingly few draws.
Well, my second book is coming out shortly. Maybe I'll bring you a copy then, and I'll scare your newborn. There you go, yeah. Okay, so Queen C8 has been played. Now let's see if he takes another 10 minutes playing Queen F8. Do I have a Twitch account? Yes, I do. My Twitch account is GM Hikaru, where I frequently stream.
Yeah, you're.
Okay, so Queen F8 mate has been played. So yeah, it's been a pleasure being here with you guys. If you guys want more of me, you can tell Abel that you want Sam to commentate more and that he has to pay my $1 million fee. And speaking of that $1 million fee, the one good thing about this hand is I'm in permanent Dr. Evil finger $1 million. So it's anyhow, yeah, it's
$1 million.
I'm gonna have the Dr. Evil finger for a long time.
Hey, and congratulations on Mechanics moving on in the summer.
Yeah, thank you. It had everything to do with me losing to their 2400 in round one. But yeah,
you gave them a false sense of security.
There you go. Anyhow, it's been fun, and I will maybe see you guys around if I commentate again sometime. Thanks much. Have a good night. Bye bye. All right, are we offline?
Yep.
Wait, so they can still hear me?
All right. They might.